And we are back to discuss something quite interesting. Actually, we have been discussing this for a while, and I'm glad we're kind of able to do it. It's essentially Game of Thrones' abandoned plot lines. So a couple days ago, I get on YouTube, and someone recommends to me this YouTuber, Supercut's Delight, who is a guy that basically comes in and he takes a bunch of clips from certain shows and whatnots and compiles them together. And he had an interesting video called Game of Thrones Abandoned Plot Lines. And I actually wanted to discuss this with you. This is something that's been in the pipeline with us for a while now. But I've been wanting to get into it with you because every once in a while when we do a Thrones podcast, you will mention, how come they never brought that back? Yeah. And so on and so forth. So would you like to go over Supercut Delight's video about this?
All right, let's do it. It's funny because Carmine said, hey, I want to do this thing on abandoned plot lines on YouTube. I saw this video. So I Googled it, and I watched this video on abandoned plot lines, and then I come back, and I was like, yeah, I watched the video on 30 abandoned plot lines. And he's like, no, dude, it was a video on 42. And I was like, fuck, we watched different videos. Okay. So, all right, let's do it. What's the first abandoned plot line?
And before we do, once again, also shout out to Supercut's Delight. I will leave a link in the description below to his video. It's actually pretty cool. He makes a lot of good points, but some points I don't agree with, which we will go into. Also, before we begin, SoundCloud, iTunes, all that good stuff, you guys know the drill. If you're still a patron on Patreon, then be on the lookout because I will be uploading an exclusive. It's almost an hour long and kind of a lost episode at this point. Normally before we start recording, we'll banter back and forth and, just to warm up and get in the groove of things. And this time we went on for about an hour, almost an hour, on the topic of television shows of 2019. So if you're interested in that, keep a lookout for that. It'll be like a Patreon exclusive because we do want to show some love to those of you who are still supporting us. And also, I hope to start live streaming more often on this channel. So I'll be opening up memberships on my channel if you guys are into that. And also we have a Discord too. Just want to get this all out of the way. I know Preston will never open up his own, so I made sure that all you Sweet Robin fans have your own little fan page on my Discord. So I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in that. I'm fairly active on there, so feel free to say hi. I love talking with you guys about everything, Thrones, Westworld, whatever. But let's get to it. Yeah. His first, these are abandoned plot lines, by the way, to reiterate that. His first abandoned plot line here is Lightbringer. And what he says is that no other character mentions it again after Stannis pulls it out, and it's kind of a part of the Azor Ahai prophecy, which also doesn't pan out. The reason the whole Lightbringer thing doesn't really matter much in the show is because it's symbolism. It's to make everybody think that Stannis is the Lord of Light because, Lightbringer and all that.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is had they not brought Melisandre back with Arya to have these fulfilled prophecy things at the end, I would say that Lightbringer is not an abandoned plot line, that the entire point of Melisandre was figuring out that prophecy was bullshit and that, none of this predicted the future at all. And yet, then they undo that by having her come back for Arya. So then it becomes an abandoned plot line. Had they not had her come back for Arya, I would have said, well, yeah, no, that's the whole point. Melisandre is a fraud and prophecy is bullshit. The future is not set. We have free will. That's a big theme of the show. Your Lightbringer is supposed to lead to nothing. Azor Ahai is supposed to lead to nothing. But then all of a sudden, no, sometimes it does because Arya all of a sudden is the chosen one. So it's a little weird. I mean, if they were gonna bring in Azor Ahai and Lightbringer and have prophecy being fulfilled, it needed to be fulfilled through Arya, but they didn't do that. So yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's so much an abandoned plot line because they did do prophecy all the way through. So it was never abandoned. Was there a big plot hole in the end? Yes, I think there's a plot hole.
Not to mention, Melisandre kind of becomes a little useless and just boring after Stannis dies and she brings back Jon Snow. Because after Stannis dies, she has this crisis of faith and where she's unsure of herself for 1 or 2 episodes, and then she brings back Jon Snow and she's right back on that train. And that was kind of unfortunate. I know what you mean.
When I was younger, I used to really like fantasy stories that had prophecy in them. And I mean, I really loved Angel, which the whole premise, at least of the first 1.5 seasons, was that, you know, this one guy would get these visions and then they would have to save people in the visions. Later on, like now that I'm older, I kind of realized that it's just a plot device. Like, oh, I need to have my characters do something without any motivation or logic. Oh, I'll have a prophecy, like, do that. I need to have Melisandre, like, introduce Daenerys and Jon Snow. Why does she want to do that? Prophecy. You know, it's a cop-out, I realized, like, later on, even though when I was younger, I used to love stories that involved prophecies. I thought that was really cool.
And what's funny is Song of Ice and Fire is filled with that shit. They're filled with visions, prophecy, fortune-telling.
I believe, and granted that different people read it and they interpret it differently. Some people read Ice and Fire and they're like, all these prophecies are going to come true. And I read it and I'm like, you're missing the point. The point is all these prophecies are lies. Like, and these are, and it's two different ways of viewing it. I think there's so many stories where prophecies come true, and I'm looking at it and going, no, everybody's being tricked. These prophecies are tricks. And that's that's why I think it's interesting. I think George R.R. Martin is, you know, fucking with us by having these prophecies. Like, they're not coming true.
Number 2, what the bell means. So the bells, them being essentially a sign of surrender. I complained about this when episode 5
not an
down.
abandoned plot, not an abandoned plot line, just a contradiction.
Exactly, because you have, like, in season 2, episode 9, Davos literally says, "I've never known bells to mean surrender." And when King's Landing rang those bells in season 2, episode 9, Battle of the Blackwater, it was, I guess, a sign to alert the city that Stannis has arrived.
Right, you're right. When I think abandoned plot lines, I think of Quaith or like Illyrio's reason for being in the story and what he wants to do with Dany. Like, those are abandoned plot lines.
I'm glad you mentioned Quaith, because Quaith is number 3. Quaith
is number 3. There's an abandoned plot line.
She gives Jorah all the answers, knows everything, and is never seen again. She basically serves as a plot device to point Jorah in the right direction. I agree with him on this one. I think every YouTuber that does Thrones content has had a video on Quaith at one point. And, I chalk it up to just essentially, this is a weird place. Not Marine. Karth is a weird place with weird characters. Essos is like this weird, and it's kind of like how the Vikings felt about, like, the Middle East. It's like this weird place, weird cultures. It's like a magical land, whatever. And Quaith is just one of those background characters who just happens to know a lot of things and is just mysterious.
We notice it more as book fans because she's so integral in the book. Quaith shows up in the second book and has more scenes than she does in the show, despite the fact that Daenerys's role in A Clash of Kings is her smallest role in all of the books. I mean, not counting A Feast for Crows, but she only has 5 chapters. But Quaith in that book, but Quaith is a big role, and then we're reminded of her, even though the Quaith doesn't appear in A Storm of Swords. We're reminded of her several times, and then she appears in A Dance with Dragons, and then it's probably retroactive continuity, but there's implication in A Dance with Dragons that all of the visions that Dany receives in the first book were given to her by Quaith. Because in the books, Dany has all sorts of these dragon dreams and various visions, and in one of them she has stars talking to her, and then later on, like, it's in one of Dany's visions she's beginning talked to by Quaith, and her her mask is stars. So
the way I see Quaith in the show is essentially how in Sons of Anarchy, this is the best way I can describe it, because there's other instances of this in other shows, but the most famous one that people might know from watching our channels, in Sons of Anarchy, Jax always encounters the homeless woman at random times, and she's kind of an enigma. Like a random character that appears with, like, just who's super mysterious. I would assume Quaith is that character. I would have liked Quaith to appear more often in the show to give that aura of mystery, because that's something the show is definitely lacking in regards to the books. But
Yeah.
no, Quaith is definitely an abandoned plot line. Lightbringer, the bells, not necessarily. That is would you call that a mistake?
That's just yeah, a mistake, a contradiction. You know, that they brought out of nowhere and it happened to contradict like stuff that had come before, you know.
Number 4 is Cersei's prophecy with Maggie the Frog. Cersei ends up having his point on this is that
Yeah.
Cersei ends up having 4 kids, and the prophecy, I guess, is incomplete. I would say it's incomplete in the sense where only 2/3 of it is ever even said aloud in the show, because in the books we also get the whole Valonqar thing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I would say it's an abandoned plot line as she's obsessed with it and she talks about it and then she never talks about it again.
I don't think she talks about it much in the show. I don't think she ever mentions it. It's only a brief flashback in the beginning.
She mentions it once to Jaime in the show.
She
and
does?
Yeah, she does. She says, "Oh, you know, the witch told me," and then Jaime says, "Fuck prophecy, like it doesn't mean anything," you know.
I don't remember this. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's one scene where she mentions it to Jaime. You know, they're in their bedchamber and all of that. But yeah, no, I would say that's an abandoned plot. Like she should have still been obsessed with it. You know, they could have just had one line saying, "Huh, I'm pregnant again." The you know, Maggie the Frog is wrong.
Oh yeah,
The witch is wrong.
Whatever happened to the bed of blood? That was supposedly like a thing. Everything about the leaks were true except that one thing that never appeared.
Yeah, it never happened.
I agree with you on there, but the way he says it is that it's an incomplete prophecy because Maggie said 3 kids and she had 4.
Right, he's bringing up the wrong thing. I would say that yes, there's a contradiction. You know, there's a mistake in the sense that in the show, Cersei has 4 kids because she has one with Robert that dies in infancy, or at least she tells Catelyn that.
It could be a lie.
One could argue that, but Lena Headey acts the hell out of that scene, so you know, it seems pretty damn true based on like the sincerity of how Lena Headey is selling it. Like we've seen Cersei be dishonest in the show, and Lena Headey acts it like she's being dishonest. And we have moments where she's honest, and Lena Headey acts it like she's honest, and she acted that scene like she was honest. And so, yeah, I would say that it's just a contradiction. They fucked up. That she has 4 kids in the show, and the prophecy said she was only going to have 3. But it's abandoned plot line later on in that she never mentions it after that season ever again. Yeah, but so 2 different things. It is an abandoned plot line, but he's mentioning it as a contradiction.
Number 5 is Jon's identity didn't go anywhere and just served as a means for conflict between Jon and Dany. By the end of the series, it's practically forgotten that Jon is a Targaryen, and how none of the lords at the ending meeting in season 8 really ever bring it up, considering Varys tells them all about it.
I don't think it was really dropped. I mean, Dany is still mistrusting Jon all the way up until the end. Varys is executed for trying to put Jon on the throne, like all the way halfway through the last season. I think it's not as important as people thought it was going to be based on the fandom pumping up R+L=J.
Right.
Because so many people thought he was supposed to be this prophecy fulfilling wonder, on the same level as Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker and Jesus and Neo and all of that. And it wasn't. The plot, the reason for it, R+L=J was to fuel division between him and Dany. That was the point of it. Mm-hmm. And it caused him to not want to bang her and things like that. So it had repercussions. Like, it had huge repercussions. Like, Jon and Dany became distant and eventually killed King's Landing. Had R+L=J never come out, she would have had the loving relationship with Jon. He would have advised him more. She wouldn't have become paranoid. So no, I would say that is not an abandoned plot line at all. It completely went the way it was supposed to go, and that was the end.
Mm-hmm. Number 6, the White Walker symbols went nowhere and are almost pointless. Bran is essentially omniscient, yet none of the characters ask him what the symbols mean, especially when they take the time to create them. Remember, I think this is something you complained about, or I don't...
No, I'd agree. This is an abandoned plot. Yeah.
How in episode... Was it... I think it was episode 1 or 2 when Tormund goes to Last Hearth, and the White Walkers took the time to chop up all those bodies, nail them to the wall, and set them aflame, yet nobody knows what the symbols mean. I would argue that the answer to all of this, and the next one too, number 7, which we'll get to in a minute, I would argue that the answer to everything White Walker related, the symbols, the kids being turned into them, was going to be explained in the Long Night prequel, which they had in the pipeline for a long time.
They didn't want to explain it in the show because, in Game of Thrones, because they had the prequel in the pipeline at the time. That'd be my guess.
They want it to be one of those things where you're like, oh, when you're watching the prequel, the Long Night prequel, and you'll say, oh, that's what that means. Okay, and then you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a plot line. I mean, it's, they show these symbols every once in a while, maybe once a season. And then it just, it doesn't, we don't know, we never find out what they mean. It's certainly something that's abandoned and never explained. But, I don't know if it's fully a plot line. That's not much of a plot, showing a bunch of symbols.
I would like confirmation that they were going to explain it in the Long Night prequel, and they just never got a chance to because it got canceled. Number 7 is the White Walker base of operations. It's never revisited, and neither are the children that get turned into White Walkers. So, in season 4, I think it was episode 4 or 5, when the Night King takes the child, Craster's kid, and turns him into a White Walker, the place he's actually walking to with the pillars made of ice is actually like this really intricate looking ice not palace, but like little base, little hideout they have.
Sure.
And it's never really revisited. Neither are the baby getting turned into White Walkers. Once again, I think it's mostly they were going to explain all this in the Long Nights, but we never got to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it needs to be revisited. I wouldn't say that's an abandoned plot. It's just they had a setting. They visited it, and then the story moved somewhere else. I mean, we never go back to Storm's End. Is that supposed to be an abandoned plot line? Well, it kind of is. But we never go back to, I don't know. I don't think it's so much of an abandoned plot. Yeah, we never find out what that, more about where they lived. Like, what does the Night King's bed look like? I don't know. It's not that big a deal. I wouldn't say that's an abandoned plot line.
I would argue this one kind of is. Number 8, Mira Reed just kind of disappears.
Yeah. I mean, they gave her a goodbye, but they never really explain
what happens to her and where she goes.
Why Jojen got those visions and what he was really explaining to Bran. One of the things that was really weird about the whole Jojen plotline is they do show Jojen spending all of this time with Bran talking, but they're always a little off screen where you can't really hear what they're saying, or you hear like the end of their conversation, like you'd be like, and that's the history, and that brings us to here, and you didn't hear everything before, and you're like, oh, I would have really liked to hear that conversation rather than Mira and Osha having an argument, which was the B plot of that area. So, I mean, they never really explained the Reeds.
Which is kind of annoying because this is something I noticed in Season 8. In Season 7, in Season 6, the Glovers won't join Jon in his battle against the Boltons. And then at the very end of Season 6, the Lord Glover says, House Glover will stand with House Stark. And then in Season 7, there's a complete sentence about Sansa, and even in 8, it gets brought up again, that the Glovers won't join them in the fight against the White Walkers. The Reeds really should have, joined in. They really should have sent some guys. Every house should have sent a couple of them.
And it's the problem is it's also kind of this dropped thing in the book. everyone talks about, oh, Howland Reed was Ned Stark's like best friend and most loyal companion, and it's like great because Howland Reed has done fuck all for House Stark in A Song of Ice and Fire. Jesus Christ, like Robb raised an army to march south. Everybody sent people. House Reed didn't send anyone.
Well, to be fair, House Reed kind of guards the neck. They kind of make it so like armies can't pass through.
What a great job they did there. I mean, Victarion took it. I mean,
well, you know, the Ironborn came out of nowhere from the coastline, so
sure. And then Robb had to like turn around and go north, and then he ends up getting killed at the Red Wedding, and then Theon takes control of Winterfell, and the North rises to take it from him, and the Reeds don't help then, and then Stannis wants to liberate the North from Roose, and they're not helping then. They're a bunch of dicks.
Damn, Howland Reed's dropping the ball. That's why these theories come out of nowhere that Howland is actually secretly the High Sparrow.
Right, or Howland's doing all this work behind the scenes because it's so hard for them to believe that he's just doing fuck all holding his dick.
And I will say, though, I don't remember... I have to go back and watch Season 3 again. I don't remember how Bran and Jojen and Mira all met, like how the siblings met Bran. I think it's when he's like running away from Winterfell being burned to the ground, but I don't remember the scene of when they met. They just kind of have met and that's it. Like they meet really quickly and then they get really into it. I feel like a lot of the interactions in Season 3 were rushed.
Yeah, they just kind of meet in the woods. Obviously, in the book, they meet at the Harvest Festival.
Yeah, it was way before that, and like they have like this whole thing too, right?
Yeah, they spend.
There's a whole introduction.
Right, so it happens in A Clash of Kings, or the second book, while the Reeds don't appear until the third season. So all of that time at Winterfell, and of Bran governing Winterfell and Theon eventually taking Winterfell. Like in the book, the Reeds are there, but in the show they're not. And then as he's walking north, he stumbles into them, and I think there's like a standoff in the woods or something where where it's hostile at first, and then they explain each other or whatever, and
Number 9 is The Prince That Was Promised. It doesn't get brought up again after like season 7. So after Melisandre gives Dany the prophecy in season 7, it doesn't really get brought up again. It kind of goes away along with the Lord of Light and everything else when Melisandre dies in episode 3 of season 8.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, neither Jon nor Dany really takes the prophecies seriously. So they, it's completely fine that they go on. Prophecy is all about Melisandre, and so they do end like Melisandre's plotline with prophecy. So it's not completely, dropped. It's just that she changes everything to Arya, but Arya doesn't really fit any of all of these other things. So I wouldn't say it's completely dropped. I just think they brought up too many prophecies, and they weren't fulfilled. It would have been fine had they not done Arya, because then Melisandre would have been a broken person who realized all of these prophecies were crap and she was a fraud. And, they tried to resolve it by having Arya, have her not be a fraud and having Arya fulfill everything, but she didn't really fulfill everything. So I wouldn't say it's completely abandoned. I just think they did it badly, and they didn't wrap up all of the loose threads of it. But I certainly don't think that prophecy, The Prince That Was Promised, or any of that was abandoned. Like they clearly end it with Arya. Like that's how it's done.
I still think it should have been Theon. Theon was the perfect candidate for the prince, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, sure.
Out of left field, that would subvert expectations. You're expecting Jon and Dany to be the prince, but it was really Theon because he was Prince of Winterfell. Born amidst salt and smoke. The ocean. It's.
So many things would have worked better than Arya.
It was all the you just hate Arya. That's not your favorite character.
I hate show Arya. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like Maisie Williams. I like book Arya. I'm actually only neutral on book Arya, but yeah, but yeah, I'm not show Arya. I'm just not a big fan, especially like once she becomes a badass. Mm-hmm. Once she leaves Bravos. I especially hate her, but yeah.
Number 10 is the Golden Company being a threat. Now, I would argue that this would be an abandoned plotline if they hyped them up way more than they did. The Golden Company get mentioned briefly in season, I want to say, 4, where Davos says we can hire the Golden Company, and Stannis is like, the Golden Company? Like, they get mentioned again in season 7, where Cersei wants to hire them. And they look like a credible threat, you know, with the war elephants and the 2,000 horses.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an abandoned plotline at all. It's just an anticlimactic result. Which, I mean, to be fair, they wanted it to be an anticlimactic result. Like, they built up this army, it arrives, and then it's immediately destroyed by Dany in order to show, like, how powerful her dragon is. Like, it was intentionally anticlimactic. Now, did it work? In my opinion, no. But that was clearly their intention. Like, they did everything they wanted to do. I just don't think it landed. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly not an abandoned plot line, no.
I will say I still love it when you were complaining about, like, why did Grey Worm had to kill Henry Strickland? Like, did they have some kind of rivalry that we weren't aware of?
No, and in fact the Golden Company plotline, it's more than just that. It's the Crown's debt, which goes back to season 1. Like, eventually transitions into, you know, getting the Golden Company and the Iron Bank. It's a continual thing, and it keeps going, and it leads to the Golden Company, and then it just all ends anticlimactically. So it's not abandoned at all. In fact, I am really surprised that they kept going with it. The Crown's debt and having it paid back. I thought they were going to drop it because, frankly, it's, you know, debt problems are not the most interesting of plot lines. But no, they kept going. They kept mentioning the Crown's debt, and then it kept going, and then they needed to pay it back, and they had the whole loot train episode where Jaime has to get his gold back to King's Landing, which leads to the Golden Company. It was a long fulfilled plot line. It was not a good plot line, but it was certainly not abandoned. It was well maintained. It was there. It had a resolution. So
there's even a whole scene with Stannis when he goes to the Iron Bank. And there's one with not Cersei, I think Tywin and Jaime, where Tywin tells either Jaime or Cersei that their gold mines dried up. Yeah, and you know, in the first season, you know, they talk about how they're in debt and
to
Tywin,
the Iron Bank. Then no, I'm saying Littlefinger brings this up at the Small Council with Ned. So I mean, it's a continuous plot line. It's never dropped. It evolves. And does it land? No. But is it a good plot line? No. But it's not abandoned. No. Okay. Moving on.
Your favorite character, number 11, Arya using faces. Several seasons of training to use this ability, and it's only used once outside of Braavos. She even brings a mask with her to Winterfell, and it's never used.
Yeah, that's abandoned.
That's abandoned. There's nothing nothing we can go into on that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, she goes to Braavos to become a faceless man. The whole you know, essence of being a faceless man is the changing of one's face. She doesn't use it for anything significant.
But she does get the training to kick ass, so...
Kind of. I mean, she has a montage where she fights with a stick. And then somehow she comes back a really great swordsman and can jump out of trees or something and stab people. And we never see that training used. Had they had a specific training where the waif is teaching her to drop daggers and catch them, and that would be something. But they didn't. They had a montage of some staff fighting, which she never uses, and her face changing thing is used to, like, kill off the Freys, which wasn't even very necessary because she poisoned them all. She could have just, I don't know. So I don't know. It's definitely an abandoned plot. That's pretty bad.
Number 12 is Bran warging into things. He doesn't use his warging abilities outside of warging into ravens. After he goes into the training with the three-eyed raven, he just only ever wargs into ravens and only ever uses them to scout ahead.
Yeah, and I would say it goes beyond that. Like, his whole knowledge and history of the world and everything is not used at all. Like, it doesn't help them at Winterfell. It doesn't. So maybe it'll help him be a good ruler in the end, but we don't know. He doesn't see. It seems like he's leaving everything to his small council while he looks for Drogon. he doesn't use his knowledge, his infinite knowledge. He doesn't use his warging, his skin changing. Yeah, it's completely dropped plot. Like there's no reason for him to go north of the wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, other than to get a really great story.
Number 13, Bran interacting with the past. Nothing is pretty much made of it since the Hodor incident. It could have had potential. I would argue that I would argue that's for the best, because when you introduce time travel into the story, it really fucks it up. Even J.K. Rowling realized that.
Yeah, no, I would say that the time travel is definitely a dropped plot. You know, they brought up time travel. You know, they expanded on the time travel, and then, you know, it didn't go anywhere.
I thought it was going to incorporate with the best theory I've ever heard, which is that the whole thing is a loop. The White Walkers are trapped in this eternal life where they just want to die,
or that Bran caused the Ares to blow up and plant the wildfire.
Right. I love that one. That one was great.
Yeah, but it didn't go anywhere. Yeah, that was completely Bran's training, and I mean, in the same way as Arya's training, essentially. They go and they get this really incredible ability, and then the ability isn't used.
Mm-hmm. 14, Daeron Naharis is basically abandoned, so that would be space for Jon Snow.
I would say that on his conversation, on his journey with Jorah, he does talk about how he's really interested in seeing how Dany is going to change the world and be a ruler. And that's the thing he's most looking forward to. And I think it's a little fitting that in the end, he's the ruler and he has to be the one that leads the new world. I think they could have expanded on it a bit more, but I think it was there. I think Dario had a full story.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he spent his time admiring Dany and her revolutionary ways and how she was going to be a great ruler, and then he became the ruler, and now it's not about him watching and seeing. It's about him doing it himself. Now I don't think they they needed to hit it on the head a little more. I'm kind of reading into the situation and writing it myself a little bit, but he does have this long conversation with Jorah about the world that Dany is going to lead and how he's looking forward to it. And so, I don't know, him being a ruler and Marine, I think it's fine. I don't think it's an abandoned plot line. I think that there's plenty of contradictions in the taking of Marine and all of a sudden the enemy disappearing. But once you make Dario the ruler, it's happily ever after, and that's it. I mean, it's cheap, but that's an ending. I mean, it's like getting to the end of a romantic comedy and being like, oh, and then they got together at the end, but then we never see if the relationship works out. No, that's not what a romantic comedy is about. It ends with them getting together.
The story is over. The character's story
happily
is
ever
over.
after. Dario had a happily ever after. That's it.
I would have liked to see somewhat of maybe it's just I want to see more of an update on some of the things that happen afterwards. Does Dario eventually quit being king of Marine and give it over to some kind of council, some kind of democracy, and just go off and does his own thing? Because he doesn't seem like the ruler type.
No. But like I say, I think they needed a couple more conversations. He had that really good conversation with Jorah. I think he needed a few more about what he we hear about his background and things like that. Had he put in a little more about the kind of ruler he would be or what he would do if he were in charge, it would have been a little better. But why would he make a great leader?
Right. 15. Now that Dany is dead, wouldn't the slavers come back? The Essos plot is kind of left behind.
Well, this is the same as Dario, right? That's just. It's bad logic and bad writing to get to there, but the story came to a happy ending with Dario. We just have to accept it's a happy ending with Dario. Mm-hmm. Peace and prosperity with Dario.
Your favorite character, Robin Arryn, was abandoned after Sansa left the Vale. Would have made more sense if he showed up at the end of the Battle of the Bastards with Lord Royce. I would argue Robin Arryn really isn't a central focus of anything. He's the Lord of the Vale, and as such, he belongs in the Vale. His fight is not really with the Boltons, though. The fact that he dispatched, or under Littlefinger's advice, dispatched soldiers to help out his cousin is good enough for this character.
I mean, I think I think the larger plot hole is it's not really an abandoned plot line because his army, takes the north, and his army is always there. You still see those Vale Lords. I think the plot hole is they had the huge force, and then they kind of shrink in size, and Northerners start respawning. Like
I know what you mean.
the Northerners have been through so many battles that there should be like 4 of them left.
Yeah.
And yet, like, they keep respawning over and over and over again. And then, while Robb and Arryn's army, which should be enormous, like, kind of shrinks. And
The Vale forces did not even enter the War of Five Kings. No. They stayed in the Vale to protect their lord like Lysa wanted.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think there's plot holes, and but I don't think it's an abandoned plot line. Like
If anything, if any storyline to Robb and Arryn was there, it was that he was kind of an ineffective ruler, kind of a weak ruler. Like the guy can't even use a bow and arrow. He can't even form a sentence without like crying for his mommy. And
right, then all of a sudden he's fine.
All of a sudden he comes back and he's tall and handsome. So
right. So and that's never explained. Like that's a weird abandoned plot line. Like how does he go from being this like needy weak kid to being a regular person? Yeah, I don't know. So, but at the same time, in the show, Robb and Arryn's not that big of a deal. So to say like, oh, we never get an explanation, like, Robb and Arryn in the show is really minor character. He's really minor. So
I'm gonna skip over number 17 because I'm assuming this is a joke. It was a joke actually. 17 was the Unsullied being eunuchs. In one scene where we see an Unsullied extra had a big bulge. So this is a comedic point on Supercuts.
I guess it's more of a plot. That's more of a contradiction or a mistake. But maybe he has a big scar. We have no idea.
And it bulges out? Okay. 18. Davos remembering that Tyrion killed his son. It was brought up one time in Season 7 and then immediately forgotten. In fact, the quote is, "Last time I was here, you killed my son with wildfire." And then he immediately tells Tyrion about a secret path the guards don't patrol. Go back and watch the scenes for those of you who forgot. It's episode 4, season 7, when Tyrion wants to have a secret discussion with Jaime. He literally says, "Last time I was here, you killed my son. By the way, there's an entrance over there, the guards don't patrol it." That's literally the line. And you always complain about this, that Davos never brings it up.
I do. It's just out of character. I wouldn't say an abandoned. Well, I would say on a larger sense, Davos's wrestling with his family and the religion of R'hllor and what his place in the world is more of the dropped plot line. Like, I would say that Davos in general is the dropped plot line. Now whether or not like Davos forgot about his son or whatever and is friends with Tyrion, that's just a contradiction. I wouldn't say it's an abandoned plot line. I think it's bad character writing. But the thing that's abandoned is Davos's entire character arc.
Yeah, that is true.
How does this man go from being dedicated and devoted to Stannis and hating Melisandre for the murder of his son, and then hating Melisandre for everything she is and for murdering Shireen? Where does that plot go? Like, why does Jon Snow fill that hole for him? And we never really get the good reason for why Jon Snow would fill that hole. He has one nice conversation with Tormund about faith in kings, and then immediately undoes it. He's like, maybe we shouldn't have faith in kings. Oh, Jon Snow isn't a king. Well, he is a king. It doesn't. Yeah, it's that's what's dropped is Davos's arc. Not really. I mean, I hate the fact that he never really confronts Tyrion about that and is fine with Tyrion and is friends with Tyrion. I hate that. It's a contradiction, but it's not really an abandoned plot line. The abandoned plot line is Davos's entire character arc.
Number 19 is Dany remembering that Jaime tried to kill her during the Battle of the Gold Road. So in Season 8, Episode 2, when Jaime arrives in Winterfell, obviously he's brought before Dany, and she gets on his case for the murder of her father. But I don't recall her mentioning that Jaime tried to kill her during the whole Scorpion ordeal, when the Scorpion hits Drogon, doesn't kill him, but he falls, he comes to the ground, and Jaime's rushing at her with the horse, he's about to spear her, and then he's about to get roasted by Drogon when he realizes that Jaime's coming, until Bronn saves him. So, yeah, Dany...
I mean, she just didn't realize it was Jaime.
Yeah, I would argue that.
Otherwise she would have gone for his body. I mean, look, it's a really stupid scene. Don't get me wrong.
It's very dumb.
It's one of the dumbest fucking scenes in the show. Him sinking to the bottom of a lake in full armor, and then having Bronn somehow fish him out like a mile away, and then not getting picked up by Dany's forces. Like, it's really fucking stupid. Doesn't make sense, but not really an abandoned plot line.
Well, Supercut argues that there are not a lot of people wearing specifically gold armor and a gold hand out there. So, but at the same,
she doesn't know. She doesn't know that shit.
Yeah,
she's an Essos. You know, what does she know?
Number 20, the Lord of Light. After the Battle of Winterfell, the whole Lord of Light plot is dropped. We don't get any answers to many of the mysteries surrounding the whole religion. All the priests and priestesses seem to just vanish. I got to agree with that. Lord of Light kind of just goes away after the White Walkers are done for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but like I say, it's like all part of the Melisandre plot. But yeah, it's pretty silly. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially, are we going the whole world? Because I would say that the Kinvara plot.
Oh, that's in here. We'll get to that.
Okay, I would say that, I would say that Slaver's Bay Lord of Light plot is definitely dropped. And the Volantis Lord of Light plot is definitely dropped. If we're talking about Lord of Light stuff in Westeros, I mean, it's all with Melisandre. So
it was all with Melisandre and Thoros of Myr. And when he died, half of it died with him. A good chunk of it died with him until Melisandre comes back for one episode in season 8, and then that goes.
But the Slaver's Bay Volantis stuff, definitely. That's definitely a dropped plot.
The whole Volantis thing is you only saw it for 5 minutes. Yeah. Someone preaching about Dany being the second coming and stuff, and that just didn't go anywhere.
And then Kinvara arrives. Yeah, it's yeah. No, they definitely should have had something. I was truly expecting Melisandre to return with a bunch of soldiers from the east, but she didn't. She just arrived. It was just her.
21. Magic in general is never explained and just used as a fantasy element. This is not really an abandoned thing. This was thought out from the beginning. So I would argue that we probably would have had more magic and vision and prophecy had the show been kind of like Supernatural, where it just goes on for 15 seasons of just episodes. But Dave and Dan never really wanted magic to being a big part of the show, because they wanted to attract a wide audience of athletes and moms and stuff like that, not just the nerdy fantasy D&D players who might watch the show. They wanted more of a crowd than nerds.
And it's one of those things that I compliment Dan and Dave on. I think this is one of the things they did really well, is that they kept magic to a absolute minimum.
You hate magic in the whole thing so much that you're trying to recategorize it from magic to actual sci-fi stuff, sci-fi elements.
Yeah. It's true, but I mean, even in the book, I would say that nearly everything can be explained with sci-fi elements, but the show goes even further and removes so much of the magic that's even in the book. A lot of people have to explain the stuff in the book, how did Melisandre cause, Orell's eagle to explode when Stannis takes the wall? And it's well, how do we explain that? There's a lot of weird explanations. Maybe he was trying to cross the wall. Do we know if Melisandre really caused an eagle to explode? Why has she never used that power again? So they removed all that. So all those...
They removed it, but at the same time, they concentrated it on specific characters. Because I feel like a lot of characters in A Song of Ice and Fire have these magical abilities, but then when you come to the show, only certain characters like Thoros, Kinvara, and Maggie the Frog to some extent, and even Melisandre have it. For example, Melisandre and Kinvara, they are able to look at people and just figure things out about them. I mean, Melisandre never met Ygritte, but she was able to utter Ygritte's favorite catchphrase, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." And what about Varys's torturer who cut his stuff off and fed it to the flames and hurt it?
And Kinvara knows all about it.
She knows all about it. So they relegated magic, and they made it subtle. Melisandre's not throwing fireballs like it's Lord of the Rings. She's just, doing certain things. She didn't make Orell's eagle explode in the show, but she's able to look at Jon and, know things about him. So it's a very subtle magical presence, but it's still there. I like it. So I wouldn't say it's abandoned. I would say it's just, that's what the idea was from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so Preston, 22 is Dorne being Dany's ally. After Ellaria dies, Dorne kind of just fades away into dust. It's mentioned briefly in Season 8, but never shows up for the Battle of King's Landing, and is only seen during the council to elect a new king. So basically, Dorne being a drop plotline has been a thing ever since Season 5. And
yeah, absolutely.
I got to agree with this one.
No, I agree.
Because Dorne was supposed to show up to the battle, but a good chunk of their armies is kind of destroyed when they're on the ships.
Sure. I mean, but it's the double standard, right? Like one group of Dorne's forces are destroyed on the ships. Fine, I can accept that. But why does everybody else get to respawn their forces and have them come back, especially the North?
You got a point there. What was the joke that the North respawns people for every major battle?
Exactly. So I, to say they all drowned on the ships, nah, that's not fair, because there were Tyrell forces on those ships, and yet the Tyrell forces appeared again when Jaime had to fight them at Highgarden. The Dorne plot was definitely dropped. There was such a bad reaction to the Sand Snakes that they decided to just end it, and it was really stupid because once you introduce it, you have to resolve it. I don't care if the Sand Snakes were horrible. Once you introduce them, you can't just kill them off. They're important, So that was definitely a horrible dropped plot.
My headcanon for this is since Ellaria took every single one of Oberyn's daughters with her and herself aboard those ships, and they're all gone, there was no leader in place for when it really mattered, and Dorne was just in disarray. So they couldn't have sent reinforcements while the entire country was trying to figure out, who do we follow?
Yeah. Of course, another dropped plot is Oberyn specifically says in the show that he has 8 daughters, just like in the book. Of course, they don't. We never see more than 3 daughters, but oh well.
There it is.
Well. The other 5 daughters are somewhere, but okay.
23 is the Dothraki disappear after Dany's death. Basically, he's saying here how the Dothraki kind of get fucked up during the Battle of Winterfell, of course. And at one point in episode 4, Grey Worm says half are gone.
Yeah.
And then when Dany is killed by Jon, they kind of just fuck off. Now, this is a point you've made several times. Aren't they supposed to avenge their Cal's death?
They are. I mean, obviously, that point isn't introduced in the show. Yeah, that point isn't introduced in the show. And I would have said that that would be a really great argument for why Jon can't return to Westeros. That once Grey Worm leaves, Grey Worm leaving is really stupid. And because he's not leaving any assurance that Jon Snow will remain in exile, which was one of his demands. And especially when the North is right there, and his sister is running Winterfell, and his brother is running the rest of the kingdom. Why would they not let Jon back? And my argument was, well, if they left the Dothraki in Westeros, they would all kill Jon if he came back.
But the combined armies of the Dothraki and the Unsullied are no match numerically for the combined armies of Westeros that are still there.
Sure, but you could then argue that there's just not that many of the North. The problem is they respawned the North again, and they make some statement that there's 10,000 Northmen outside of King's Landing. And I'm like, where did those guys come from? What? My God. So, I mean, the way I would have done it is at the end, there's many Dothraki still left in Westeros. They're taken on to, to people. They marry to them to daughters. They make them lords. All the things. People are like, oh, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. Like you can.
Isn't that what they kind of are doing with the Wildlings in the books?
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, one of the big things that the book kind of makes a joke of is that all of these stories about people being wild and unruly are bullshit. That actually everybody's civilized. Everybody plays by, complicated social rules. No one is just wild, which is, it's basic racism to claim that like a Dothraki couldn't suddenly farm and like learn the laws of Westeros. Of course they can. They have their own laws themselves. So my argument was, oh sure, there's not enough labor because everybody's died in wars. So
right.
There's plenty of daughters out there that need husbands. There's plenty of land out there that needs working. You could have just had the Dothraki be those people, and then they would simultaneously be the armies and be within the armies and ensure that Jon Snow never returned. But this is all my freaking, fan fiction. It didn't happen. But yeah, the Dothraki are a dropped plot. You see a couple walking at the port, but how are they getting home? What are they doing afterwards? We don't know.
Yeah, I haven't even. I'll have to ask Dragon Demands. Shout out to that guy. I have to ask him what happens because what he loves to do. I used to like doing this, and then I just stopped because I just didn't care anymore. After season 7, I used to love listening to the DVD Blu-ray commentaries.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they will clear that up. Like there was a moment, I think, in one of the episodes, one of the commentaries. I saw it on an article where I think Emilia Clarke asks them, does Drogon eat my dead body? And they're like, no, of course not. Oh.
Yeah, but it's so weird because if it's not on screen, it doesn't mean it, it's just, it didn't happen. It's not canon or whatever. All of these alternate endings and deleted scenes that appear now in media, they're all very confusing because now I don't really know like what to think. Like, this is a real quick side thing, but did you know that in the original Office Space, like there was a scene in which they talk about his boss dying in the fire?
Oh.
Yeah. And if you actually look, like during the fire, his Porsche's there. And then, so the cut scene is them going, oh, are you going to Lumber's funeral? And they all go, fuck no. And then they kind of walk off. And it's just, oh, his boss like burned up in the fire. Now, clearly, like when they put together this comedy, they were like, nah, that's pretty fucking dark and not that funny. Let's cut the scene. And it was cut for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, if you're thinking about the plot of Office Space, like, what happens to the boss? Like, did he die in the fire? And am I supposed to think about that Porsche that's in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Or am I supposed to just assume that, he survived and, went on to be some middle manager somewhere else? Like, you don't know. And so it's odd. Like, does a deleted scene count? I don't know. But, I mean, we don't know what Drogon did with Dany's body. Who knows? He could have eaten it. Clue.
I know what you mean. This happens a lot with Star Wars. Certain things that should be, especially Rise of Skywalker, certain things that should be explained in the whole like movie are usually explained in the book. Like the opening planet that Kylo is on, being Mustafar, being explained in the official novel of the movie.
Right.
So I guess it's a shame Game of Thrones doesn't have its own. Wait a minute, it does. Wait a minute, it does. Number 24, Rickon's death is glossed over. Jon is the only person who really reacts to it, and they never really hold a funeral for him. That is true.
That is true. Nobody brings him up. Bran, Sansa, they all don't bring him up. I think there's even a line where Arya talks about the last of the Starks, and she's like, our father's gone, our mother's gone, and then she doesn't even mention Rickon. Maybe, I don't know.
Does she not mention Rickon? I don't remember.
I forget. I have to because I'm trying to think of like that would be really horrible if she didn't. Like, because I think she mentions Maester Lewin. Really...
Oh shit. I really don't remember the kid from the books. The only thing I remember about Rickon is that he's in Skagos and Davos has to go grab him. What did Rickon do in the books that's incredibly significant? Is there anything he's done or?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's more about potential. So Rickon has more connection to his wolf than others. Like, I mean, not as much as Bran, but he, we never are in his head, but he also has been working his wolf. But he hasn't been getting any instruction from anyone. So when Jojen kind of tells him, tells Bran, oh, you're going to lose yourself in your wolf. Well, Rickon doesn't have that instruction. So, the idea is that Rickon might be becoming very wild. The wolf might be taking over Rickon. But so far in the book, he's more of an object than a person himself. Like, the North is rising. There's a secret conspiracy to put Rickon back as Lord of Winterfell from Wyman Manderley. And Davos has to go find him. So Rickon becomes the MacGuffin. So he doesn't quite have his own agency yet, but there's a lot of potential there. In fact, there's arguments that all of the kind of prophecies and messages that the three-eyed raven, that the three-eyed crow has been sending out, and that Jojen has seen, he actually misinterpreted them, and they're actually all about Rickon.
Oh,
they're not about Bran.
That's kind of cool. In the show, there's a moment where Bran's like, "What are you doing? Go back to bed. Mom and Dad will be back soon." And he says, "No, they won't." So I guess that's because he had a nightmare. So I'm assuming the show was giving us hints that Rickon maybe be having those dreams that Bran gets.
Yeah, I mean, he was having them before. Arya and Jon were having them, so maybe around the same time as Jon was having. No, I guess he had those dreams. He had some good dreams. But the point is, he's powerful. He has all the elements that say he's powerful, and no one's been training him. No one like forced him into a coma, or like gave him psychotropic drugs. But I guess he was stuck in the crypts in the dark for a week, just like Bran. So his gift would have awoken, just like Bran's did. Mm-hmm. So he's far along in his development.
Number 25, Cersei being feared by the people of King's Landing. The people hating her as their new queen is never really brought up. Neither is the atrocities after she blows up the Great Sept. Real quick, so Rickon's death being glossed over, Rickon himself kind of being abandoned, plotline?
Yeah. I mean, they do their best to I don't know. I mean, they brought him back and they killed him off immediately, but you're right that his impact should have been more. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And as for Cersei being feared because she blew up the Sept, that's also kind of...
I would say that's a dropped plot. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're going to build up this whole faith militant thing, and you're going to have everyone in this kingdom be of a particular religion, and then you're just going to blow up the equivalent of their pope and their Vatican, and everyone's just going to be cool. Yeah.
That is like if she blamed it on Dany, which is something I would have done if I was in charge. Like I would have had them blame it on Dany because the fucking giant fire and all that stuff. So
right. Unfortunately, they had a Hot Pie scene where Hot Pie says, "Oh, Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor." Had he just said, like, they could have fixed it. Had he just said, "Oh, like agents of Daenerys blew up the Sept of Baelor," that would have fixed it all. You would have been like, "Oh."
Wait,
geez.
Hot Pie said that in season 7?
Yeah, so remember when Arya...
when she's like acts all weird, or like, yeah I know. I don't remember him saying that.
He says two things that are really weird. So he's like, "Oh, no, Jon Snow won the Battle of the Bastards," and everybody's like, "Oh, Battle of the Bastards is like the official name of the battle? Really?"
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay, that was the first thing, and then the second thing was he's like, "Oh, Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor." Everybody was like, "Whoa." So people know that she blew it up.
Are you fucking... I don't remember this at all. I'm going to do that thing you always do where you just... real quick. He fucking says that? That's so random. I don't remember that at all. Where he informs her of recent events, notably the destruction of Baelor. And he goes, Arya must go up to Winterfell, and Arya, blah, 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 blah. He tells her House Bolton was defeated by Jon Snow and his wildling army in the Battle of the Masters. I need to watch the scene when we're done here. I don't remember this. Holy shit, that's the stupidest thing ever. How come I don't remember that? Okay, whatever. All right, so Cersei being feared for, all the stuff is, 26. Cersei wants Bronn to kill her brothers, but then hesitates when Tyrion's in front of her in episode 4 with the archers and the ballistas and just doesn't kill him. So I wouldn't say this is a drop plot, more like a contradiction.
Yeah, more of a contradiction, but also kind of understandable. I mean, it's one thing to send somebody off in the abstract, and it's another thing to do it when they're right there in front of you. Mm-hmm. I do wish there was a couple more, mentions about how like she can't kill her family as much as like as evil as she is, she still can't kill her family. She still has it's the same with it's the same with Tyrion. Dany makes one comment about how maybe he's secretly working for them, and that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea that as fucked up as the Lannisters are, at the end of the day, they're still fucking Lannisters, and they still like got each other's backs. Mm-hmm. That's really, as they've been through so much, and they hate each other, and they've done so much to each other, but at the same time, like, Tyrion can't kill Cersei, and Cersei can't kill Tyrion. Like, that's a very interesting idea. I wish they alluded to it a little more.
They did, actually. Remember in season 7 when Tyrion has a private conversation with Cersei? Mm. Cersei just has a moment where, like, the mountain can cut him down right then and there, but she doesn't take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
And he breathes a sigh of relief. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and she couldn't do it when he's right there. He's standing right there in front of her. Sending Bronn, I mean, that was just a dumb plot. They should have just cut the Bronn thing. Like, it served no purpose.
Well, you need to show where Bronn goes. If he's not in King's Landing, where's he going to be?
Right, but I mean, everybody knows, like, that Bronn, the actor that played Bronn and the actor that played Cersei used to date, and so they, continuing on, they could never be in the same scene together because they
That's
really
actually
don't
not
get
true.
along.
There's one scene I think they're in, unless they had a stand-in for Bronn. Season 3, episode 1, when Cersei goes to see Tyrion, she makes that comment about, oh, they said half your nose of it is gone. And she goes to Tyrion's room with 2 Kingsguard. Yeah. And they're outside, and Bronn goes, and he's about to fight him because he wants to get inside the room. And then the fight is stopped before it begins when she walks out and she passes Bronn, supposedly. Might be his double, might be her double, and there it is. So, I think that's the only scene.
See. Yeah. And what's really interesting is the 2 dated before Game of Thrones started. So I mean, I guess they had that one scene then. But at other times it's quite obvious, like when they have the dragon pit scene and Bronn is like, "Come on, Pod, let's leave for no reason at all." And you're like, "Okay." And then Cersei arrives. You're like, yeah. But yeah. But it's interesting that Lena Headey and Jeremy Flynn, like, Jerome Flynn. Used to date, but this was long before Game of Thrones was on the air.
Number 27. This is something we mentioned briefly. I just find it hilarious that he put it in here. Jon just left Sam to die. Sam doesn't bring up how Jon just left him to die. It's that one scene in episode 3 where Jon runs back into Winterfell. The Night King's inside already. Yeah. And Sam is being overrun by whites. And he's like, he looks at Jon, and Jon looks back at him, and Jon's like, ugh. And Jon just fucking leaves him to die. So in episode 4, Sam's just completely cool with it and even offers to name his son Jon when his son comes.
I think that was a missed opportunity. I think that it would have been really powerful had Sam died, had Jon made a sacrifice. Like, I need to do something and I'm going to give up my best friend. I think that would have been really neat. But
I kind of find it inconsistent. Like, how the fuck is Sam even alive for 2 seconds as they swarm him? There's a scene in episode 3 where when the whites charge in there, they charge in there with such ferocity that, like, they punch an Unsullied person's head off.
Yeah, I mean,
That plot armor.
the whites are very inconsistent. Like sometimes they're like these ravenous piranhas that just tear people apart instantaneously, you know.
Right.
And then other times, yeah, they're nothing. That John can that Sam can be in a pile like a pile of whites and blood and bodies and being and whimpering and being like, ah! Like, yeah, it's I'm laughing because I actually really like that scene.
You also like it when John's like running through the tunnel and the whites are falling down.
Yeah.
Very Sam Raimi-ish.
I thought the over the top like raining bodies. Like, how do you outdo Hardhome? How do you outdo the Battle of the Bastards? Well, you have bodies falling from the sky and piles of quivering whites and Sam Tarly in a pool of blood, like whimpering.
I just love the look he gives him.
Oh well.
This will piss you off. 28.
Okay.
The Night King. John leaving Sam to die. Not really an abandoned plot, just a thing that just happened.
Yeah, not that bad.
28. Night King leaving a mark on people he touches. He touches Arya, and she isn't marked from it, even after the battle. Also counts for a point where Arya forgets to be an assassin and charges at him screaming.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, I would say that the Night King's abilities and what the mark was and why it allowed him to find Bran and go through all of those circles. I mean, it gets into the broader issue of the nature of the others and the nature of the three-eyed raven and their connection and things like that were not fully flushed out. Why that mark would have worked and why the mark would have been he would have been able to find him. Yeah.
But I agree with him here. It should have left a mark on Arya even after she killed him. Even though the mark can't be used for anything now that he's dead, it should still, kind of like when Frodo got stabbed by the Nazgul in the first Lord of the Rings film. Even the stab wound bothers him going into the ending of the third film.
Yeah, and I just wish there was some sort of sacrifice. I mean, had Arya lost her arm or something after that battle, that would have been something, Because when you look at the book and you look at the sacrifices people make, like Tyrion losing his nose, and Jaime losing his hand and things like that, like real sacrifices are being made. People die. And in the show, Jon comes back from the dead and it's fine. Tyrion, like, not only does he not lose his nose, his scar kind of looks badass, Arya never gives up anything, it's just, it's too bad,
Well, it is. I would say the touch kind of is a little abandoned, but mostly what's abandoned is Arya forgetting to be an assassin and just charging at him screaming. She had the training for a long time, and yeah,
right. Yeah.
And they even reference, I think, in the beginning of season 8, where Arya like sneaks up on Jon and he's like, "I didn't even hear you coming." And it's like, But
yeah, I mean, it would have. Imagine if she had pulled a Walking Dead season 1 where they pretend to be, or this is actually in Shaun of the Dead too. Like, imagine if she had covered herself with the face of an other, or face of a White Walker, and
that would be a little funny because she's short.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that'd be a little ridiculous.
Not everybody has to be. She changes her height, though, right? She was able to be Walder Frey.
Sitting down, I mean. 29. What did Podrick do to those girls? I think this is a gag one, because, 30. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I need some water. 30. Dany forgetting her tried and true offensive strategy in Yunkai and then later Meereen. Her strategy back then was to infiltrate cities in a stealthy way and take them down from the inside. Dany did not do this in King's Landing. I would say this is kind of a weird point, because I'll have to defend this point, at the same time go against it, right? Because she doesn't have this information because her advisors don't tell her about it, right? Varys and Tyrion both know of the secret entranceways, as does Davos, apparently, but they never disclose this information to her. But at the same time, Dany also doesn't say out loud that this is what she wants to do, even though she's done it twice already.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's up to her advisors to come up with the idea in the first place. But I'm back and forth on this one. I agree with it. They could have taken King's Landing from the inside, an inside force.
Right. Now, in the show, whose idea do they have for the sewers? Do they make it Dario's?
I think they make it Dario's idea again.
Yeah.
Or Grey Worm's. Because doesn't he go inside?
Yeah, I mean, in the book, it's Brown Ben Plum's like idea, but I guess they make it Daario, and then you see them going in and freeing everybody from the inside. I guess it wouldn't really work because the Marine strategy is sneak in, free the slaves, and have the slaves open the gates and cause ruckus inside. With King's Landing, like you don't have like the people inside are against Dany too. So you at least wouldn't have that. Now, being able to sneak in and do something like assassinate Cersei, I guess, they should have tried that. I mean, what's the drop plot I think is bigger is that they have a fucking faceless man like on their side and they don't use her.
Oh, that actually would have been cool. That actually would have been cool. But I think Jon would have been against it though.
He'd be like, it's too dangerous. What are you talking about?
She killed the Night King, bro. I think she can handle it.
Yeah.
So abandoned plotline. I kind of just dumb.
Yeah, it's kind of just dumb. I wouldn't say that that's a plot line. Like it's not. There's nothing thematic to it. Like it's just a remarkable coincidence that somebody used the sewers at Marine and Casterly Rock. I'm not sure if we're supposed to connect those two things even, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. He did utilize it for Casterly Rock, but just Tyrion being stupid again, I guess. But
I don't even know. I don't think as viewers we're supposed to make that thematic connection. That right, they went through the sewers in Marine, and now they're going through the sewers at Casterly Rock.
31. Ilyn Payne and Arya's kill list. He disappears after season 2. Her kill list is also kind of forgotten, but that is understandable considering everybody just dies anyway. Yeah, I don't think it's really forgotten. The actor for Ilyn Payne, the reason he just disappears is because the one thing I will commend Game of Thrones on, the show, is getting rid of the fact. There are a lot of extra characters in the books that are kind of unnecessary. Like you just mentioned, Brown Ben Plum. Cutting Ilyn Payne out is just cutting the fat. He was there for season 1 and 2. I think the actor gets cancer, so they leave him alone. But then he recovers from the cancer. But at the same time, they don't need Ilyn Payne anymore because, correct me if I'm wrong, in the books, when Jaime goes to the Riverlands, doesn't he take Ilyn Payne with him to train?
He does.
Right, so Bronn can just take that place. Because Bronn is just a fun character people want to see more of anyways. That's an excuse to keep Bronn in there. And as for her kill list, I mean, besides Melisandre, you have Ilyn Payne, who I guess... My headcanon for Ilyn Payne is he's still there in the background as the king's executioner. But when Joffrey dies, Tommen kind of is a softer king. So he doesn't really have as much need for Ilyn Payne as Joffrey did. And when the High Sparrow kind of takes control of Tommen, he just sends Ilyn Payne home. So besides Melisandre, Cersei's still on it. I guess the Mountain's still on it. So that's 3 people. Joffrey died. Who else? Walder Frey. I think she had it, but she was just gonna go kill everybody anyways.
Yeah, I mean they mention the kill list at Winterfell the night before the big battle, and he just kind of because Beric Dondarrion was on the list. And right. Beric was on the list. And so he's like, wasn't he on your list? And she's like, used to be. They could have just added one more line. She's just like. If she should have just had one more line saying, "I got rid of that list. It was stupid." That would have been fine. Something that is simple as that, or I got rid of that list. There's more important things in the world, or so, just anything. It would have been fine, but they didn't. So it's a little bit of a dropped plot, I will say. The completion of the list, I think, is is a bigger book plot than it is a show plot. Like a show plot, they just kind of phase it out. They realize that this isn't so important. And in the book, though, it's it's still like, well, the most recent chapter is about Arya still working on the list. So
right.
You know.
No, 32. Nymeria and her pack. Not much of a point to this scene. The show brings her back and then shelves her again. I kind of agree on that. There really was no point in bringing back Nymeria. I
wouldn't say it's a drop. I would say that that's actually the inverse of a dropped plot. I would say that a resolved plot that didn't need to be resolved.
Yeah, there was no point in bringing her back. It just, who cares?
So they brought Nymeria back. They resolved it. But no one was asking for that resolution.
I think the original plan to bring back Nymeria was to have Nymeria have her wolf pack go up against the White Dragon. I think that's what I remember reading in an article. But they chose not to do it.
Like she comes out of nowhere and then all of a sudden there's this wolf pack.
And there's this wolf pack going up against the undead dragon. Meh.
Yeah. They could what they could have had was like Arya awaken with a wolf, like real short scene. Arya awakened with a wolf dream of the wolf like seeing Ilyn Payne, the two attacking each other, and Ilyn Payne and Nymeria killing each other. Just like Robert and the Boar.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up in horror that Nymeria has died but she at least completed her list. And maybe after that, she decides the list is stupid. They could have done a lot, but...
Jesus Christ, okay. 33. Varys being a master spy, doing the opposite of a spy by telling everyone he's committing treason by wanting Jon Snow to be king. Yes, after season 4, Varys kind of is not really a spy master anymore. He's just kind of an advisor to everybody.
Well, everything changes about him, right? Like, he no longer uses... child slaves. He's no longer linked to Illyrio, who is a pro-slavery individual. They all of a sudden make him good when he is anything but, right?
Yeah, he was more like an ambiguous character coming in and out, trying to get Dany killed, but, I guess having his reasons still, and, doing Tywin's bidding and Cersei's bidding, and, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, because in the book, everybody looks at Varys's I do things for the realm as being ironic. Like, everyone's like, right. You do things for the realm. Like, no one believes him. No reader believes that Varys is doing it for the realm, or... in his mind, like the most draconian path to doing something for the realm. In the show, that it's earnest. No, he really cares about the people.
In the books, doesn't he kill Kevin Lannister because Kevin is doing such a good job at running the realm?
Yes. And keep in mind, in the book, he is using children with their tongues cut out and orders Illyrio to get more of the children. And Illyrio's the one that's like, it's so hard to get these kids, Varys is like, I need more. Varys is an evil douche. And if you, in season 1, keep in mind, he is, undermining Ned. And leads to his actions partially lead to Ned's death. So, and he does try to murder Dany, assassinate a 16-year-old girl. All of these things are there.
Varys is an evil douche. My God.
Oh, yes. Well, it's debatable whether he actually wanted Dany to die, but whatever.
34. Varys' past is glossed over. The words he heard when he became a eunuch are never gone into. I don't think I don't think they need to go into this. It's just one of the reasons why I guess the reason they gave in season 3 for why he went against Stannis is because he hates magic. I get that, but at the same time, we don't really need to go into this.
In fact, I kind of think that, so the show is a little different than the book in that Varys finds and orders the magician to be brought to him, and he kills the magician. He tells the story of how he lost his nuts, and then he's got the magician right there, and then he kills him. He gets his revenge. That's not in the book, you know. So, but I mean, him losing his nuts to some magician is, but you could, yeah, like it's right there. Like why Varys would be against, like that's all you need, right then and there about his nuts and the background and him hating Stannis. The plot is fulfilled. The problem is they bring it back. They bring it back with Kinvara. And then you're like, oh, now they've mentioned it twice. This must be important. No, it's not.
Would you say that's a nice addition that the show put in there, having Varys like open up like this little coffin and he's in there?
I think it's fine. No, I mean, but the problem is again, if you're portraying evil Varys, you know, like, but the problem is they all of a sudden made him a good guy. So I don't know. Like it was a nice addition until they contradicted it by whitewashing him, like they did Tyrion. You know.
35. Kinvara and the other Red Priests. No resolution on the Lord of Light religion. So yeah,
Yes.
The Lord of Light religion kind of just goes away. Last season, in season 7, Melisandre said she was going to go off and discuss the current situation about the Night King and all that stuff with her people. I expected several priests to come and be like a whole like thing. Only she comes, and that's it. So that is kind of dropped.
Yeah, I mean they brought it up in Volantis with the Asian priestess. They had Kinvara come. They had the entire they had Meereen become really pro Red God for no reason really, because in the end you find out that all the discord was being funded by Yunkai and Astapor. So you didn't even need the Red Priests to be part of it, but I don't know. It was very messy plot. They brought all these things up and then it went nowhere. Like it had nothing in the end.
36. Letters Varys sent out informing all of Westeros about Jon's true lineage, but none of the lords at the ending meeting ever bring it up.
Yeah, but you know, Jon's going to the wall, I think at that point, right?
No, so, they haven't decided on that yet. I don't believe. They never really bring it up though. All the lords. I would argue like him being a true Targaryen. Did anybody at attendance even care about that? Especially after the whole Dany thing. I mean, I guess Dorne and the Greyjoys care, and the Tyrells are gone. Do the Stormlands care? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, if anything, they would want Gendry on the throne. But I guess it in a sense, it contradicts Varys' assessment of the kingdom. But Varys' assessment of the kingdom could be wrong. Like he thinks that, and maybe they could have played into that. Because if you remember at the very beginning, Viserys thinks that the whole kingdom is going to rise for a Targaryen. Mm-hmm. You know, he's convinced of this, and we're supposed to think Viserys is pathetic, that he's got all of these false hopes. In the book, we're kind of on the fence. Like we're like, well, there might be some people, there might not. You know, like go back, like when you first read through Viserys' assessment, like the Greyjoys, the Dornish, the Tyrells, and you're just like, dude, they're not gonna. You're, for the Beggar King, come on. But then later on, you're like, well, you know, once you learn about these houses, you're like, maybe. I don't know. So it's kind of a big unknown. So would the kingdom really care about a Targaryen? Well, apparently they didn't. We have our final, at least in Game of Thrones, we have our final answer. Varys was as deluded as Viserys. The kingdom wasn't crying out for a Targaryen to come. They just didn't care.
That actually would have been actually pretty. That annoys me now. I would have liked that, like as a thing that as though Varys thinks that everybody cares, but you find out maybe only 2 people care. Maybe
that would have been really funny had somebody brought it up at the small council, like Jon Snow is the rightful heir, and everyone being like, yeah, who cares? Like them laughing at it in the same way that they laughed at democracy. They're like, who cares?
And not even that. Yara doesn't even give a fuck about the whole Targaryen thing. She was just allied with Dany. So she doesn't care about Dany being a Targaryen. She just liked Dany.
Right, she liked Dany because Dany promised her Ironborn independence, which then was forgotten about. That's a dropped plot. That's a big dropped plot because that was the entire Ironborn plot, was their independence movement.
Which should have been brought up when Sansa brought her thing up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it was the whole goal of Balon, and then it was the whole goal of Yara. So yeah, no, that's really bad. But okay.
37. Your favorite part.
Okay.
Grey Worm was being very inconsistent with not taking Lannister prisoners, as they are the Queen's enemies, but he does take Jon prisoner. As we all know, Preston, it's not his decision to make.
Yeah, no, that's a completely. I wouldn't say a dropped plot, but an enormous plot hole. Like an enormous, like the largest and worst of plot holes. There's no reason that anyone should have taken Jon Snow alive.
I mean, the armies. Some people have argued, well, the Allied army does consist of 1/3 of Stark forces, but yeah, the other 2/3 are Dothraki and Unsullied, so they kind of got the numerical advantage there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that Grey Worm is, as I said, the effective dictator of Westeros at this point, and he just cedes all of his power.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that Davos stepped in on Jon's behalf, but then again, why would they listen to him?
Yeah. Like, who are you?
38. Cersei being manipulative and actually doing things that was a thing for many seasons, but in season 8 it all gets dropped to her just staring at things. This one I'm a little iffy on because yeah, he does have a point, but at the same time, what is Lena Headey really going to be doing? Like, she's already queen. She doesn't really have to manipulate. Her manipulation came because she really didn't have much power. So
yeah, I mean, you know, she's checkmated. Like, how are you supposed to do? You're like, you know, she should get out of it. No, I mean, she's checkmated. Like, all you can do is kind of go insane, I guess, at that point.
So she's not really a drop plot. 39, the Dothraki dying in the Battle of Winterfell. This one I don't really get that much because we already covered that briefly. Not all of them die. Apparently half are gone, according to Grey Worm. So
right, I think people get confused because, and they're confused a little rightfully so, in that when looking above and you see the Dothraki's lights go out, thematically you're supposed to be assuming that they're all dying at that point. Because as their light goes out, that's a metaphor for them going out, for them dying. But in fact, that we saw that many of them came back. So they weren't dying. It's just that their lights were going out. That was it. So it's more that the metaphor of the scene, which was clearly set up that way, just wasn't factually happening on the ground. So I mean, there's logically, yeah, lights can go out and Dothraki can run back. We see the Dothraki
we see some of them run back. Jorah comes back.
Yeah, Jorah comes back. Like, you know, that's Ghosts runs back. It's just that the metaphor, the theme of it is confusing because they were thematically trying to make a point and then they undid that point. So I get it, but no. I mean, plenty of Dothraki just came back. So we didn't see them die. Mm-hmm. We just saw their lights go out. So
number 40, the Scorpions being a threat, and then during Dany's assault on the Iron Fleet in episode 5, they're not a threat. That's kind of a weird. I mean,
yeah, not a dropped plot, just a bad contradiction.
Right, because to be fair, in episode 4, they catch Dany off guard. And then they catch Dany and Rhaegal off guard, and then Rhaegal gets killed, and then she comes at them, and they all fire at her, and they miss anyways. So I guess she's, boosted her strategy, or beefed up her strategy in episode 5 when she comes like directly from like the sun, and I guess they can't move it directly up.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a good point that essentially they sucker punched her, and that's not going to happen a second time, you know. So fair enough. You know, I think that's a fair argument that, you know, they sucker punched her. She wasn't paying attention. They were hiding, and then after that, she's like, no.
If anything, her not having not having scouts is the true drop plot, because she did scout ahead in season 3 when the Second Sons arrived to assist Yunkai. So
Sure. And plus, it's just stupid when you know Euron's fleet is out there. I mean,
they mentioned it in the scene like 3 minutes before.
Yeah, and Dragonstone is right there next to King's Landing. Like, why would why would you?
Well, 2 more. 41.
Okay.
What happens with Drogon and Dany's body? I think I just read an article recently. I keep saying this a lot. I do apologize, but things about the show are coming out as the show is done. I think the showrunner said that Drogon is taking Dany's body to Volantis.
But also, okay, having an ambiguous ending is not a dropped plot. That's just they wanted it to be ambiguous on what happens to her at the end. He flies off. And now we don't know, that's not a dropped plot. It's just they fly off.
If Drogon is intelligent enough to know what the Iron Throne represents and to burn it, maybe he's intelligent enough to want to bring her to like a Red Priest to resurrect her, since the Red Priests are firmly behind Dany.
Sure, or maybe to the middle of the Dothraki Sea to have his own little ceremony. Who knows? It does, it does. Like there's a million things that could happen, and we're supposed to wonder because it's an ambiguous ending. Like. And let it be ambiguous, So it's that's not a dropped plot at all. No, that's just they just chose to have a certain ending.
Finally, 42. Bran not being able to be Lord of anything. Yeah, this one I'm a little iffy on as well, because if he can't be Lord of anything, but he can be Lord of Westeros, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, technically a king is a lord, but. You could say he's a king, not a
he's doing a thing. He's doing that fucking okay. He's doing a thing. All right, cool.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, yes, a king is just the top of the lord vassal structure, and a king is a lord, but he's not the lord. It's like your thumb is a finger, but your fingers are fingers. So your thumb's not a finger, but it's a finger.
But not really a drop plot, just kind of like, eh.
Yeah. He changed his mind.
So, Preston, let's start now. 43. The Warlocks trying to kill Dany in Season 2, or actually post-Season 2 in Season 3. They only show up once. They kind of send an assassin after her in the first episode of Season 3, and then that never happens ever again.
Yeah. I mean, I with the little girl like showing her teeth and the ball with the scorpion inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it's a dropped plot, but once you're kind of gone from Karth, like, I guess there's no more need for them. I mean, so in the book, obviously, the Warlocks come after Dany, and they continue, and then they get taken over by Euron. Captured by Euron.
Most of the characters from the Karth plotline in the books actually go on and serve other purposes. Like Zara on Doxos, doesn't he meet up with Dany and Meereen?
He does, and that's very George R.R. Martin to bring back these characters that you thought were gone. I will say that in the show had merged a bunch of different plots. So in the book, it's not the Warlocks of Karth who do the assassin's hit on Dany. It's the sorrowful men who are a league of assassins who apologize before they kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of hear about them, and then this guy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and tries to kill her, and that's it. And it's odd because they go into all of this detail in the book on Karth about the various leagues and factions and stuff that exist there, and then Dany leaves, so you don't know if these factions are going to continue on or not. But at least the Warlocks come back, and Zaro comes back,
and quaith to some extent,
and quaith to some extent, right? So we'll see if others come back. For instance, the Spice Guild is a faction, the Sorrowful Men, things like this. The 13, things like this. So.
It does seem more or less like they put a curse on her, like, before they died. It's like a last-ditch effort to have her killed, and I guess the curse was just a one-time thing post-Season 2 with the little girls, so That's mostly what it seemed like to me. So not really dropped, kind of resolved, but eh. Number 44, Sansa being married to Tyrion. They should officially still be married, since they never really went into a divorce proceeding. Tyrion makes a joke about it, and they just kind of laugh it off like it never happened. I wouldn't say this is a drop plot, more as it's explained more so in season 5, when basically the marriage is kind of null and void because Tyrion never consummated it, and there's a whole scene between
Yeah.
Littlefinger and Roose Bolton about it. To my understanding,
Yeah.
marriage in Westeros is almost like a contract in the sense you get married, it's signed, but it's not really stamped with the official seal unless the consummation happens, which never did happen, so null and void.
Yeah. Yeah, so the show and the book are very different about marriage. So in the book, even a betrothal is considered a pretty strong contract that's a big deal to break. And so they don't even break that. For instance, Joffrey is really reluctant to break his betrothal to Sansa because he made a promise that he was going to marry this person, and it takes the High Septon to go, no, it's fine, and he goes, okay, I guess so. Now the show, it's very different. The show, if you don't have sex, it doesn't matter. The betrothal doesn't matter, and if you don't consummate your marriage, I guess there's, a statute of limitation, or if you get married to somebody else, like it nullifies the original one. Mm-hmm. So, they have the discussion between Bolton and Littlefinger about it, and then there's another discussion between Tyrion and Jon about it, about how it was never consummated, and therefore the wedding went away. So, I think they dealt with it enough. It was just very different from the book plot because it's a very serious book plot, and they just kind of. But, to be fair, they never established in the show that marriage was that big of a deal like they did in the book. So I'd say it's just I think he thinks it's a dropped plot because of some conflation with the book.
Right, but it's more of a resolved plot that we didn't really need to go beyond, because it was mostly Tywin's whole thing, and that kind of died when he died, and when Tyrion and Sansa both fled King's Landing. It's kind of resolved, in my personal opinion, not a drop plot. 45. The faith, religion, and the militant are entirely dropped after Cersei destroys the Great Sept in the Season 6 finale. Real quick, we actually discussed this as an entire thing in a separate video that hasn't been released yet, but I'll make sure the clip from that is uploaded on the Game of Thrones podcast channel. So, once again, link in the description below. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell for that channel, and check it out. 46. The Lord of Light organization supporting Daenerys is never really touched on beyond preaching her name to the people and kind of occasionally, sending certain people like Kinvara or Melisandre to help her, kinda. But mostly all they really do is just say how awesome she is, and that's pretty much it. They're never really touched on beyond that. Just occasionally preaching the goodwills of Daenerys to the people of Essos.
Yeah, this is a completely dropped plot. They did set up quite a big, thing that they were going to, that her support, Dany's support in Essos was going to be a thing. You had the Asian priestess in Volantis, you had Kinvara showing up, you had all these people preaching, and then they just kind of had one little scene saying, "Oh, we've got peace in the city because everybody seems to be converted," and then that peace is destroyed by the wise masters of Astapor and Yunkai, and then I guess Daario just solves everything once he comes into power. But yeah, absolutely. Like, I was fully expecting Melisandre to come with an army.
Not even an army, maybe like a squadron of Lord of Lights. How do you say it? Relor?
Yeah, Relor.
Relor.
There's an apostrophe in there, so I don't really know how. Like, I've never heard anyone try to pronounce the apostrophe. Most people that I talk to just say Relor, but would it be like Relor or something? Because there's like a glottal stop? I don't know.
Well, I expected her to come with maybe a squad of Relore followers or Lord of Light followers with her, guys that can do the fireball trick or whatever, but or maybe warrior priests like Thoros of Myr, but she just I guess they believed, the head of the order believed that all they needed was her. oh, this is one of the biggest battles to save the history, the fate of the world, and they just sent Melisandre, and I guess that was enough.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really made sense about the whole thing because, again, the reason the Sons of the Harpy in the show, the reason the Sons of the Harpy were causing trouble is because they were funded by people from Astapor and Yunkai. Okay, that was firmly established that the money was coming from the outside. That was the cause of the problem. Tyrion goes and makes a deal with the Lord of Light people, and then he sees peace in the city. But it's completely unrelated. It's like treating a rash with like, an injection for your kidneys or something. It's like he's treating a completely different problem, and somehow it's successful. Like he achieves peace in the city by focusing on lore followers, but the Sons of the Harpy are funded by people from Astapor and Yunkai completely in an unrelated fashion. So it wasn't even. It's like. It was such a miss. Like, it's not just a dropped plot. It is a dropped plot, but it's also just like such an odd miss and it's just so convoluted. I can't even like speak in that it's just, it makes so little sense.
Still in Essos, 47, the dragons misbehaving and that having no lasting consequence of her imprisoning them. I wouldn't say this is a drop plot. Her dragons were young, and they were, being adolescent children, and, they misbehave, and they had a rebellious stage where they were trying to, just be dragons. And them not listening to her, or her seeming like she has no control, is once again them just being kid dragons who are learning to fly and, roast things alive and hunt and stuff like that. So, as for the lasting consequence of them being imprisoned, I guess I would argue that should have been a thing, but at the same time, you could also argue her bond with them is so strong that maybe they just shrugged it off.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough because in the book, obviously, like having the dragons imprisoned and then having the dragons freed are huge plot points that affect the politics on the ground extremely. While in the show, Dany makes a decision based purely on the fact that a farmer came in with his dead child, and then and the public had no opinion about it. And then when the dragons are released, the public has no opinion about it. And so, the dragons weren't eating. And then it happens again, right? The dragons aren't eating when they make it to the north. It's never really explained why the dragons started acting weird, or why they kind of were fine with Tyrion. They're imprisoned for no reason, and then they get out by just digging a hole in the wall, and there's no real reason for it. I don't know.
So the dragons have not been very consistent, but
I'll admit that's a bit of a dropped plot. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for it. But yeah. I mean, the showrunners clearly were trying to follow the book a little bit, and then had to resolve everything really quickly. But yeah, oh well. Yeah, that's a bad one.
48. The Faceless Men just disappear from the story after season 6, especially how they allow Arya to kill one of their own agents, steal some of the faces, and just run off. There's no consequences for her actions in this plotline after she kills the waif. And quite frankly, I'm inclined to agree that the Faceless Men don't really care about her after she just runs off, especially considering they did enact some form of consequence when she killed Meryn Trent, but they just kind of let her go, unless they plan on killing her later after she's done with the whole season and the series. So
yeah,
the Faceless Men being they're kind of a drop plot line, and Arya's powers, which we also touched on last time, is also a drop plot as well.
Yeah, definitely Arya's powers, considering she only uses them to sneak up on Walder Frey, which isn't that important in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I would say it's more inconsistent. Like, they try to wrap it up with him being like, "You finally become no one." Well, how does that make sense at all? But okay. And then she's like, "I'm going home." All right. Like, I wish I could even make sense of it thematically, but I can't. because she doesn't really even decide to go home until later when she's with Hot Pie and he tells her that Jon is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like, I'm not going home. I'm leaving to go enact revenge on people.
I also kind of liked your idea for Arya, why she had to like flee Westeros because the Freys wanted vengeance.
Yeah, that would be.
So
Yeah, because there's no way she would have been able to kill every Frey, because especially considering she didn't kill the women or the children. So
well, she was able to kill the Night King, Preston. So I mean,
right.
a couple of Freys should be nothing.
Maybe she killed all the women and children off screen. I don't. I guess.
49, and this actually bothered me when we came to season 6 and 7, but I understand why. 49 is Anguy being dropped from the Brotherhood Without Banner storyline. Now, I would argue there are two reasons for this. The first being budget. The big 5 or 7 actors and actresses wanted more money in later seasons, since Anguy first appears in season 3, and he's not the only character who was dropped for likely budget reasons. We'll get to that later. The second reason being he's just too overpowered with the bow and arrow. In the books, isn't he considered like one of the best archers in Westeros? And didn't he also win the Tourney of the Hand?
He did. He won the Tourney of the Hand, and then he spent all of his money on hookers. On sex workers, I'm sorry.
How dare you, Preston? I'm assuming the reason why they also removed him is because he is the best, and had he gone beyond the wall with the Brotherhood Without Banners, the Fellowship of Winter, he probably would have fucked up the Night King. If you give Anguy some dragonglass tipped arrows, he probably could have destroyed everybody.
Of course, they are rather inconsistent about the size of the Brotherhood. You know, like how many people are in the Brotherhood Without Banners, because at some point it just drops down to Beric and Thoros, and then it's just Beric, and the rest of them are kind of gone, you know.
Didn't most of them die or stay behind in the Riverlands?
It's hard to say. They when they were walking north, it seemed like there was like 9 of them or so, and then only well, I guess some nobodies went north of the wall. We're not sure who these nobodies were. I mean, if they were Night's Watch or if they were wildlings or if they were Brotherhood, we don't know. But a few nobodies went north of the wall. But then, you know, after that, we just have Beric and we just have Beric.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what happened to the Brotherhood Without Banners. They just kind of disappeared.
Number 50, Salador's son, which, by the way, is a good name for songs. He kind of just disappears after, I believe it's season 5, where Stannis is able to pay him some amount of money, and Stannis gets his ships. He kind of just disappears after that. Would I say this is a drop plot? I don't know if it's a drop plot. I just feel as though the character kind of overstayed his welcome. But if anything, I would admit that I'm kind of annoyed that we didn't get some resolution with him or some final scene where he says, well, Davos, good luck. It's been nice knowing you. And leaves.
They filmed an entire scene where, you know, he's in the bathhouse in Braavos with the sex workers, and then Davos comes in and he's like, we got our money. And Salador San's like, oh, okay.
Son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah. And then he disappears. So, I don't know. He gets raptured.
If anything, I would have included a scene where after Stannis goes crazy, he leaves, and he goes and tells Davos what happened back at the wall, and tells Davos, you're on your own. I just came to send my regards, and, well, bye. Or maybe he joins Dany's fleet with Davos.
Right. You know, like, you're right that they needed to have just one scene of them at Eastwatch, and him saying, you know, this is where we say goodbye. Like, I'm not in this anymore, you know, like something. And then that would have been fun, you know, but you're right. He just disappeared. I imagine he ferried everybody from Braavos to Eastwatch and then he disappeared.
And then, wait, didn't Jon use his ships to ferry the wildlings from Hardhome?
No, he somehow walks back with them.
No, he doesn't walk back. He takes the boat. Remember, the Night King is like, are you not entertained? And he's on the boat.
Right, but then he's on land. Like, he does take a boat, but I think it's just the Night's Watch boat. Or, and then he, even though he leaves by boat, for some reason he gets off and gets onto land and decides to like walk up to the gates with the wildlings. Could have gone to Eastwatch and then walked, on the safe side of the wall. To Castle Black, but instead he decides to land on
And
the
have that
dangerous side
dramatic
of the
stare
wall.
down with
Yeah, and have
with
a dramatic stare down.
with Thorne, Alistair Thorne.
Yeah, Alistair Thorne. Yeah, that was really stupid.
Once you pointed out, like, fuck, that was dumb.
memories. Memories. But yeah, that's just they just had their own boats.
50. So I would say Salvador San, kind of a drop plot. 51, you would agree with. The free folk using wargs is suddenly dropped after Orell's death. Yeah, it kind of is, because they make, in season 4, when we meet the Magnar of Fend, he specifically asks what happened to your warg, which implies that the free folk, especially Mance's army, have wargs in them. And yeah, after that, it doesn't seem like any of the free folk even have any wargs left.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm trying to think of like the importance of wargs and skin changers. In the book plot, it's important because Jon is also a skin changer. And so it's like the fact that he feels he's more wildling than Seven Kingdomer. Like, that's part of that, the fact that he has this like beast feeling, and he, by meeting other skin changers, he's meeting his kindred. And so in the show, they never really explore Jon's ability to skin change, and so he never really feels kin with someone like Orell. There's no point to Orell having the eagle at all. He just does, right?
In the show?
Yeah, in the show.
In the show, he serves more as a scout.
Yeah, and then he's killed.
He's killed, yes, because he doesn't trust Jon. He thinks Jon is a betrayer, which he is.
Right, he is. But there's no plot reason why he, like, Orell specifically needed to be a skin changer. There's no thematic reason that there needs to be skin changers. It's just Orell was a skin changer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying in the book, like, it's important thematically that skin changers are in the wildlings, and Jon is a skin changer as well. So it's one of the reasons he feels kinship with the wildlings. And I don't know. We'll see if skin changing also plays part in the plot, as skin changers are at the wall now, so at Castle Black. But there's no reason to even have skin changers in the northern plot. They could have cut Orell, and everything would have been fine.
Number 52, Daenerys being able to have children. This question is randomly brought up during the pit meeting in the season 7 finale between Jon and Dany, and then kind of dropped. I agree with him on this one, that Dany being able to have kids would have made her death a bit more painful for Jon, especially since it's alluded that they've had sex multiple times. But there was no point in Jon going into detail with Dany as to whether or not she can have children, especially during the whole meeting with the Lannister forces and King's Landing. So they had to have brought it up for a reason.
I agree that this is a dropped plot. I think that what should have been the case is that when they're talking about her legacy, everyone would have said, but wait, she can't have children. There is no legacy. And then it would have been a reason why she shouldn't be the monarch, or why Jon shouldn't marry her. I mean, that should have been the thing, that, oh, you can have no children. There's no one to continue on your legacy. But instead, yeah, it's not really brought up in that sense. Like, or, it could have been brought up as a good thing. Like, yay, she can't have children. The next ruler will be chosen, but it is dropped. Like, there's no relevance to her having kids. Other than that, I mean, I guess one could argue that maybe her dragons are her children, and it's important that she can't have children because her dragons are her children.
Mm,
But
that's a little bit of a stretch.
you know, so I mean, had they I don't know mentioned it a few more times with the death of Viserion, and Rhaegal, maybe it would have been important. But I agree, it's a dropped plot because there's huge political importance to the fact that she can't have kids.
Yeah, of course. Especially
Yeah.
with the whole thing with her and John. Like, I agree with him. It would have made more of a gut punch if, we got a hint that she could, since he did kind of bring it up.
Yeah, or it would have been harder. It would have been harder on John if she revealed to him that she was pregnant and he had to kill her anyway. That would have been even worse. Like, oh God, like not only are you my love. See, this is the thing is like they wanted to establish that John and Dany were really in love, and it was a really hard move for him to kill Dany, but we didn't really feel that John and Dany were in love, or at least if we felt it, we felt that John fell out of love. So him stabbing her wasn't as hard as it should have been.
Well, they had
But
that little date where they flew on dragons that one time. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. But so, if you want the impact and power of like him killing his true love, it would have been even worse had she been pregnant with his child. Like had she revealed that to him like right before getting stabbed, like, oh, this is going to be great, and our child, and he's like, what, you're pregnant? And then he realizes, crap, I've got to kill you and my unborn child. Like that would be a real sacrifice. That'd be pretty powerful. Jesus. Missed opportunities.
53. The concept of winter is just kind of forgotten about. It takes several years for it to even happen, and it's inconsistent in the show. He goes on to cite that the scene where Jaime is leaving King's Landing in the season 7 finale, it's starting to snow, but then later on in season 8, during the meeting between Dany and Cersei's forces, there's no sign of winter at all. He's 100%
Yeah,
correct about this, and it's something
absolutely.
almost everyone has complained about, especially since, I don't know if you recall, the White Raven arrived from the Citadel early on in season 2, and
Mm,
it took Winter a long time to start in the show, especially if we're going by, like, every season being a year or so. And
yeah.
he also comments on how whether or not the Night King may be able to control winter, or how much winter there is. Like, if there could be any credible argument here is that maybe the Night King can amplify how strong the winter season can be, but I don't think the Night King can control like the whole weather for most of the planet. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean the fact that winter felt like worst and most intense during Stannis's drive south, and then it doesn't really feel particularly bad at any point after that. Like you feel like we hit peak winter at the end of what was that, season 6?
Season 5.
Season Jesus. So we feel we've hit peak winter in season 5, and then we go season 6, season 7, season 8. Yeah, and
It only gets that intense when the Night King shows up and he summons strong winds to counteract the dragons.
yeah. And this is rough because it also contrasts the book where currently in the book winter is so bad, and it's the first day of winter, and we're like, oh my gosh, things are going to get even worse than this. Like this is the feeling you get. Like, oh my God, things are really bad already. Like Stannis walked through, for 2 months in a snowstorm, and you felt that snowstorm because you're with Asha, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, yeah, in the show it just all disappears. You never feel like there's intensity after the Stannis drive. Like you never feel like it's winter anymore. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say that horrible.
Well, he had to sacrifice Shireen, and I guess you could argue the Lord of Light was there, but I would agree that 53, the concept of winter, is kind of dropped very
Yeah,
quickly after season
absolutely.
5. 54, hinting that Rickon may be a warg and being left out altogether. Yes.
Mm,
We got. I wouldn't say that. Rickon did have green dreams in the show.
yes.
That was hinted very strongly, but the whole character himself was just dropped completely after they leave him and Osha. in season 3.
To be fair, in A Game of Thrones, Sansa and Arya also received green dreams, but they never really have those again either. So it's a drop plot in the book too. So Arya starts having wolf dreams, but she never really has green dreams again. While both she and Sansa had like weird green dreams back in A Game of Thrones, but oh well.
Someone mentioned this in your comment section when we were doing Fire and Blood. Someone said how it's weird how none of these characters in Fire and Blood, any of these Targaryens, are having any dragon dreams.
Oh no, you're absolutely right.
But at the same time, if they did, I think they would keep it to themselves because we're going at the whole Targaryen history from Maester Gildane's perspective, and maybe the Targaryens that did have dragon dreams kept it to themselves and didn't tell Gildane about it.
We start hearing about the dragon dreams around the time of King Aerys I, essentially the events of the Hedge Knight, Dunk and Egg stories. That's when the dragon dreams are first heard of, and then, but at the same time, like, that's when Bloodraven is alive. So it may be that just Bloodraven is causing all of this. So he's the cause of all of the dreams. So
it's possible. 55, and this is something you've brought up as well. The Ironborn wanting their own independence. He mentions that maybe Dave and Dan forgot this ever happened because Yara does bring it up during her meeting with Dany, I believe in season 6, but she never brings it up again in the Great Council meeting in season 8. So
yeah, this is a pretty bad one considering it's the entire Ironborn plot. Like, it is the entire purpose of, like, it's why they did everything they did. It's why Asha's character essentially exists, you know.
And do you think the argument that Yara could have brought up would have maybe helped her? Because she could have asked it as a personal favor to the Iron Islands, since their prince did give up his life to protect the current king, Bran.
That's true. Could have. And, you know, they could have just tacked it on and been like, you know, the Iron Isles are independent as well. Okay. I mean, how does that affect anything? Like, the North is independent and the Iron Isles are independent. That's not effectively different for me than the Iron Isles not being independent at the end of the movie, at the end of the show. Like, they could have just had her have independence, but whatever.
And they could have made her master of ships too, to maybe like give her. I don't think Yara would give a fuck, but still, like, give the Ironborn something to help to, like, make them want to stay in the Seven Kingdoms and not be independent, because their independence could be a problem later on down the line. Yeah, this is a drop plot, of course.
I mean, why did Yara sail to Slaver's Bay? Like, why did she join Dany's alliance? Like, that was, wow. She was like, what did I do with my life? Oh, man.
Well, I'm assuming because you can't have Yara and Euron in the same place. Not to mention, in the books, doesn't Yara run away to the north to get away from Euron because he wants to marry her off to one of his own guys?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that structurally they're like, well, we had Victarion went to Slaver's Bay. We're gonna have Yara and Theon go to Slaver's Bay, and that'll be good enough, you know. But it's just that it's the whole thing. Like, season 2 on, like, you know, Theon goes home. His dad wants independence and to conquer the North. You know, they conquer the North, and then that leads to Theon's whole slew of trouble. And then, you know, Yara's got to try to rescue him, and then Yara has to go to, wants to become, queen in order to have their independence, and then it's stolen from her from Euron, so she goes and joins Dany. But it's very clear that she still wants independence, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the entire plot of the Ironborn, and it was dropped.
56. Jaime's character arc. Him not giving a damn about the innocents, despite the fact that he sacrifices his honor to save King's Landing from the Mad King. But this one scene in season 8 ruins it, when he tells Tyrion that he never really cared about the innocents. I would argue that he was just saying that. He was lying. He was just saying that just to get Tyrion off his back.
Yeah, I mean that would be the argument. I think one of the missed opportunities is that, and perhaps there's a cut scene or something because I was very confused. Is when Jaime goes in the city, they keep showing him marching towards a bell tower, and then
Oh yeah, you mentioned this last time that you thought he was supposed to ring the bell.
yeah, and then it would make sense like that he's the one trying to save everybody, by making it to the bell tower to ring the bells. I almost feel like they had these scenes filmed and then somehow in editing they switched things around. But then it would have fixed everything. That no, he did want to save the city. He's going to save the city again by ringing the bells. But no, yeah, it's just kind of dropped. Yeah, I think that's completely. I think it's not great. Like it does seem insincere when he says it. Like, oh, I don't care about people. He does say it, in a very flippant manner that makes you think he's insincere. But you want some sort of follow-up that shows that, he really does care about the people.
And ringing the bells would have shown that.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to literally fuck up their own stories that they've built up the entire time. Like, it just really makes you... See, because I defended Jaime's decision to go back to Cersei because he's not the hero everybody thinks he is. He's a flawed human being, and he's in love. And we do stupid things when we're in love. You've done it. I've done it recently. Like, we all do dumbass things when we're in love. And even if we're in love with the wrong person.
The things we do for love.
Exactly.
And I would argue, and I wish they would have had this, I would have argued that, him keeping his oath to Cersei, their love, is keeping an oath. Like, I wish they would have, stressed that more, but I think that's what, if they're stealing George R.R. Martin's plot, I think that's what they're stealing from. I think that's George R.R. Martin's idea that that he has an oath to Cersei, their love. Just because there's previous George R.R. Martin stories that are very focused on this, like Dying of the Light. And so, they could have done that. They could have mentioned that, but still, I'm fine with it even being unsaid that the things we do for love, Jaime's in love with Cersei, he has to go back. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But him not caring about people, I mean, come on.
I don't buy that. Yeah, I don't buy that. Maybe that was the intent. So, is this a dropped plot? Jaime's character arc? I don't know about that. I think Jaime was very consistent throughout the entire show. Most of the beyond character development. That aside, I think he was mostly consistent.
That's the thing, right? Is he's almost consistent in his inconsistency. Because I remember back in season 3 and 4 when he didn't immediately break up with Cersei like he does in the book, and he sticks around, and everyone is just so confused, and they're like, wait, but Jaime's supposed to have this character arc, and he's not having the character arc. Yeah, Jaime never had the character arc in the show. That's fine.
That's fine.
He was always an inconsistent. He was always on Cersei's side. He never really broke up with her. He broke up with her for a second in the show, But that's fine. He didn't have the character arc. But I guess they never. If they never established the plot in the first place, you can't drop it. I guess.
But also at the same time, people always cite his journey in season 3 with Brienne. This is kind of reminds me of what happens with Jaime in the third book. We kind of get to see a more deeper side of him. In the first and second seasons, he's a jerk through and through. But in season 3 is when we really get to see who he is, just like in the third book. And just because we get to see his side of the situation, what happened during the Mad King's final days, doesn't change the fact that he's still a flawed human being who's deeply in love with a horrible person, and he's going to make horrible decisions to be with that person.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is Jaime killing the Mad King in order to stop the death of 1 million people. Almost anyone would have done that. You're talking about 1 million people. That makes it. Had he let the 1 million people burn, he would have been a really horrible person.
And,
You know,
and
like,
wouldn't he have burned himself?
that's true. Yes.
He if he would have let Tywin die, because I believe Tywin was either in the city or close enough to the city to maybe have been caught in the blast or the inferno, and he would have died himself because the Mad King firmly believed that he would have been a dragon born anew through the flames.
So making Jaime into this like hero, no, I mean, yeah, he's a hero in the sense that he saved everybody, but yeah, like everybody would have saved, like everybody would have done the same thing. So, you know, he can still be a horrible person and not want to kill a million people and himself and his family, you know? So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't, I agree that it doesn't seem right that he would say like, I don't really care about those people. But at the same time, Jaime's kind of inconsistent and he makes jokes like that. And, he was kind of in love with Cersei the whole time. And he was pretty consistent in that respect. He really, you know, pushed forward this idea that he was in love with her all seasons. So
he did try to move away from her. He did with Brienne and moving away from Cersei during the whole White Walker crisis when he leaves at the end of season 7. He does try to leave Cersei, and at the end of the day, he can't. And that's something a lot of people can really relate to. Trying to leave that girl you fell for super hard, but at the end of the day, you're just too weak to do so. And it's fine. We get it.
Yeah. It's not, you know, it's not that there's a lot of complaints I have about season 8. Like people's complaints about Jaime are, you know, they're on the bottom of a long list. You know, like,
out of all your complaints about season 8 Jaime, I think the most that stands out is the fact that Dany didn't call him out even more so for all the things he's done.
Right, or the fact that he has to kill Euron and have a boss battle with Euron.
Boss battle.
Yeah.
That is fucking ridiculous. I get to be the man who kills Jaime. What? When was that your goal? When was that a thing you wanted?
Oh man!
Like the most random rivalry ever. Like, what was the other rivalry that was random that you said? It was
I think Theon versus random Ironborn guy.
No. It was Grey Worm versus Strickland.
Grey Worm versus Harry Strickland. All right. Like, why are they fighting? Okay.
Let's move on to number 57. And
jeez, 57. How many more? What are we getting to? Like 350? What would we go until?
Maybe. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
We're going to actually 65.
Okay. Oh, that's not far at all. 57 to 65. Just 8 more? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So 57, the Iron Bank, betting on Cersei winning the war. Cersei loses, so what does the Iron Bank do to get their money back? I think this is kind of a weird confusion that many people, including myself, had during that season 7 scene. So to my understanding is that the money that the Lannisters took from Highgarden made it back to King's Landing, and the actual train that was going from Highgarden, you know, the train, the cart, you know what I'm talking about, the supplies,
yeah.
Those were grain. That Dany attacks, that was grain. To my understanding, the Iron Bank already got their money, and I think the money that was left over after Cersei paid back the debt was used to buy the Golden Company. I don't think the Iron Bank gave them a loan. I went back and I saw the scene before we started recording. I don't think the Iron Bank gave them the loan to buy the Golden Company.
I thought this is just what I remember. I thought she paid back the previous debt and then took out a new loan to buy the Golden Company.
See, I saw the scene with her I saw the scene with her and what's the guy's name? Tycho
Nestoris.
Right. I saw the scene with him, and he doesn't say that he's willing to help her once he gets the money, but he never says he's going to loan her more cash to get the Golden Company. He just basically says, by the way, the Golden Company has helped us in the past, and she's like, yeah, I'll think about like employing them.
Huh. I mean, maybe. I don't think it's too much of a thing in the end. I mean, it's just something that Bran would come in and then have to pay off. Like, okay. You know, on the list of things that are messed up with the world, that are in crisis. Like yeah, the paying back of the loan to take out the gold, take off the take the Golden Company. Plus, she might have promised to pay the Golden Company. She might have taken out the loan, promised to pay the Golden Company, and then never actually paid an invoice. That never actually paid them. They all got killed, so it doesn't matter. Though whatever money she has, the castle fell upon on top of her. There's a lot more money to be spent rebuilding King's Landing and things like that. That's going to be a bigger loan to take out from the Iron Bank. But I don't know. I don't think it's too much to worry about. I think it's a bigger loan to repair the entire city that got destroyed than worry about the money to pay the money to pay the Golden Company. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Luckily spring is right around the corner, and they're going to and really winter never came. So
winter did come. It just happened for a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks or something.
Right. There was a week of snow in King's Landing at most. So it's the equivalent. That means Dorne was fine. It was still growing crops. So everything, Old Town, perfectly fine. So they just have to get a lot of money to rebuild, and maybe take out another loan with the Iron Bank. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Number 58. Tyrion giving Jon and Dany a weird and ominous look when Jon goes into her room at the end of season 7. This seemed to set up some conflict for them in season 8, but nothing ever comes of it. This is something everybody pointed out, that Tyrion is just giving them a weird stare, and come season 8, he's just cool with it.
Yeah. In fact, they're sitting around talking about having them be married, right? The only ominous look of oh man, this is going to be trouble would be after Jon's birthright is discovered. Before that, there's no trouble at all, right? At the beginning of the season, they're all completely tickled pink that Jon and Dany, the King of the North and the Queen of the of the Seven Kingdoms would get married and there would be peace. They're tickled pink about that idea, and Tyrion giving an ominous look on the boat. I guess we just have to accept it's from him being in love with Dany, and then he kind of gets over it.
See, you keep making this assumption that he's in love with her. I don't think he's in love with her. I think he loves her, like how you love your brother. You're not in love with your brother, but you love your brother. I think he's in love with the idea of what she was or what she could have been.
Yeah, it's a little ambiguous because he does say oh, I loved her, and then he says not as thoroughly or as successfully as you, and obviously it's not that he might not be conflating the different types of love, but if he is in that statement, he's doing that. So I think some people took that line of Tyrion admitting that he was actually in love with Dany as well. But I don't know. It's an ambiguous line, so who knows?
Oh, and before we move on, so the Iron Bank, is that a drop plot line? I think it's just resolved.
I would say it was fairly resolved. The Iron Bank in general is one of those plot lines that I'm really surprised they didn't drop. They kept bringing it up every season, and then they finally did something with it, and she paid the loan back, and then got the Golden Company, and then the Golden Company was killed. Do they have to pay back that loan? Well, sure, maybe if there wasn't an additional loan, as you said, but. I think it's just I wouldn't say resolved. It's just I don't think it's really worth mentioning. Paying back Cersei's final loan if it exists. You didn't think it existed. I thought maybe it did, but we'll see. But I thought it was. See, I remember making fun of the season and being like, this is really weird that they have her pay back a loan and then immediately take out the loan again. Why were they in such a rush to get the money paid if they're just going to loan it out again? They'd be back at the same number, but I don't know.
And Tyrion giving Dany and Jon that unapproving look at the end of season 7, drop plot or
Yeah, I do think it's really weird. I do think it's really weird. I guess it's dropped. Yeah, I mean, we would have to assume that somehow Tyrion was in love with Dany and then got over it. But again, like there's nothing in the plot that or show that shows him getting over it or being fine with that. So yeah, I definitely say it's a drop plot. Like he gave an ominous look, like this is going to be trouble. I believe it's going to be trouble, and then the next season he's completely fine with it. He's actually happy about it.
well, it would have made more sense if Tyrion actually found out about Jon's true parentage before he gave them that ominous look.
Yeah,
That would have made more sense because Bran and Sam find out about it around the season 7 finale. If Tyrion was there, that would have made more sense.
yeah, it's true.
59. Benjen Stark is a drop plot. An incredibly interesting character that is undead, yet on the side of the living, but is only there briefly to save Bran and Jon, and that's it. So I wouldn't say Benjen is a drop plot per se, but I would argue that his conclusion was very unsatisfying.
Yeah, I mean, everybody kind of says that it was shoehorned in. Like they did resolve it, but it's just like, really, like you bring John back only to have Benjen come out and save him at the last minute to have Benjen killed. It was completely shoehorned in. Um, it it uh it wasn't a very fitting resolution. Like John never gets to talk to his uncle after searching for him for years. You know, Bran gets to talk to him, even though that Bran wasn't the one that was obsessed with finding him. You know, so yeah, I would say it's just a weird shoehorned in, too quick resolution for Benjen. We never really find out the deal with him and what his powers were, or his relationship with the children of the forest and the three-eyed raven or any of that. But you know, just shows up to immediately get killed.
Yeah, that was. I once again not a drop plot. It's concluded. He comes back
Just
briefly,
concluded
but
poorly, you know.
very yeah, just like the Blackfish, concluded very poorly. Um, Number 60, The Horn of Winter. It's briefly shown in the show, but it's
Yeah.
more relevant in the books than it is in the show, and there's no point in even bringing it to the show if nothing ever comes of it. So here's where I'll defend the show on this point. There's a point in time where the show is allowed to show us or give us Easter eggs from the book, and this is really what it is. It's that season 2 scene where uh, Gren and Sam find the dragonglass daggers and the horn
Yeah.
at the Fist of the First Men.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an Easter egg because what he does is he takes the horn and he tips it over, and what slides out of it is dragonglass. And the dragonglass is relevant to the plot.
And if I remember correctly, the Horn of Winter in the books that Mance says he found is this like gigantic, huge thing.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got two supposed horns of winter, right? You've got the horn that Mance finds in a giant's grave, and that he's using as a legend to unite the wildlings together, to convince them to fight against the Night's Watch, and he later uses it to bluff against the Night's Watch, claiming that, I can totally like knock down your wall. So he's got these, he has this like power resides where people think it resides, so he invents this like fake item, and to bind people, and then it turns out it was nothing, and Melisandre burns it in the end. And then you've got Sam like finding a horn, or Ghost finds the horn, and eventually Jon gives the horn to Sam. So that horn, other fans think it might be the Horn of Winter.
And that's what I'm going to assume it was, a nice little Easter egg the showrunners put in there for, like, book fans. We've seen instances of this before, mostly with characters. One that comes to mind off the top of my head is Lothar Brune gets a brief mention in the beginning of Season 2, or Lem Lemoncloak in Season 6, the Brotherhood members that come to Septon Ray's village and burn it down. So we do get Easter eggs from time to time here and there, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. Just the show never built it up. The show never built up the Horn of Winter.
Number 61, Oberyn's other children. He mentions them, but they never show up. Would have been cool if the new Prince of Dorne was Oberyn's son. I agree on how it would have been cool to see one of Oberyn's children show up at the Great Council meeting in Season 8, but this really does feel like a throwaway line, especially since Sam's Citadel plotline was, like, highly condensed into a few episodes of him doing nothing. Orbit and, like... Don't you have, like, a theory that, like, in Winds of Winter, like, Sam's plotline will involve, like, the impending Ironborn invasion, mysterious faceless men assassins, and like Sorella Sand, and the
Brave Companions. Yeah.
The Brave Companions, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how he's going to resolve it all, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Old Town all at once. Considering, you know, faceless men, Brave Companions, Sand Snakes, Euron, Maester conspiracies. It's a lot. It's a lot. So we'll see.
So Sam's plot was like condensed, but like Oberyn mentioning he had a bunch of daughters, I don't think that's a drop plot line. I thought that was just a throwaway line to just build up his character, that he's such a
philanderer or something. Yeah, but I mean the scene where he does it, he's using it to connect with Cersei, and he meant about parenthood, and so he mentions that he has eight daughters. I mean, it's a tiny little bit of a dropped plot, because where are they when Dorne is supposed to be ruled, right? Like, aren't they related to the Martell family? Of course, we don't know who the Prince of Dorne is, so maybe it's Doran's cousin, and so they would come before 5 bastard Sand Snake girls. So maybe. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they were mentioned again, kind of like it would be nice if they mentioned the Tyrell cousins that should be running House Tyrell after that Marjorie mentions, but we never hear.
You and these cousins, man. You and these cousins. You love the Tyrell cousins, the Jeekwe. You love all these characters.
Where's Jeekwe? Oh, her Danny's Blood Riders that just disappeared. Oh man, her first Blood Riders. She gets her later Blood Riders, but first Blood Riders just kind of disappear. Once she makes it to Marine.
Oh, you know that you could. They were there in season 5, guarding her at the great fighting pits, but I don't remember seeing them post season 5. So you can argue they just fell in with the other Dothraki.
Yeah, I mean probably, but you know, like I say, it was really silly that they sent off Jorah and Daario on their own into the Dothraki Sea to find Dany without Dothraki. Like, oh, you just know you know, like somebody that might be good at tracking in the Dothraki Sea, who knows how to get to Vastoth Rock. Oh well.
But Oberyn's other children, I disagree with you. I don't think it's a drama plot. I just think it's just, once again, maybe an Easter egg. I don't feel like there was enough of it to be you know, a plot. But you do. I mean,
obviously, you know, as book fans, we think of Oberyn's other children as being very relevant. But you know, were they ever built up in the show? They had one line. They're bastards. They wouldn't necessarily inherit. So maybe it's just that we're so conditioned to the book, because they're so the 5 other Sand Snakes are so important in the book, especially Sorella Sand and Elia. But we'll yeah. I mean, I'll say it's not much. It's technically a drop plot. I'll give it, but it's a really small one. There's the compromise.
Number 62, Pycelle faking his age. He goes on to mention the deleted scene in season 3 between Tyrion and Pycelle, where Pycelle explains to the audience why he puts on the performance. I agree with this, but at the same time I don't. It's not really a dropped or forgotten plot, because it never really had any significance, which is why Dave and Dan kind of cut out that deleted scene from season 3. But it is important for that season 3 deleted scene to be in there, because it references his true allegiance to House Lannister.
Yeah, I mean, that's a neat scene. It is kind of redundant because I think there's a scene where Pycelle acts more nimble around a sex worker. So it is you know, it is canon, even without the deleted scene, that Pycelle is faking his feebleness. Is it that important? Well, I guess not. I mean, I don't know if we learned more of it, it would have made a difference. Those kids would still have stabbed Pycelle. And that would have been the end of it.
If anything, that deleted scene was important because, and I think Varys references this in one of the Blu-rays, Histories and Lores, and he says how Pycelle convinced the Mad King to open the gates of Tywin during the last days of Robert's rebellion. So that scene is important, but not to show that Pycelle is putting on an act, but because his allegiance was always to the Lannisters and not to the crown.
Yeah. Now the deleted scene also is supposed to. It has Tywin killing a fish, which is supposed to mirror him killing a stag in a previous scene, where he's stripping a stag. So it's supposed to be like, oh, he defeated the Baratheons and now he's defeating the Tullys. You know, so it's like, you know, that kind of thing. So it's, but yeah, I mean, it's a small thing. I guess it was just something to make Pycelle more interesting, that he's not as dumb as he lets on, but he never uses that knowledge to do anything. You know, I guess I wish Pycelle had a bigger role and acted and used that intelligence. I mean, in the book, they never really introduce him being smarter than he is. I mean, Pycelle's not dumb, but you know, you never think like, oh, Pycelle's an idiot. No, actually, he's super clever. Like, no, I mean, Pycelle is just, you know, he's a smart guy. He's just not a super smart guy, and it's not, you know, there's no twist. So I guess it is a little weird that they introduced this idea that he's faking, and then it never plays any role.
Yeah, that's why I'm in between.
Do you think the deleted scene is closure enough? Like, it's important that he's faking because it tells us about his like Lannister allegiances.
The reason he's faking, as told by him in the deleted scene, is because he doesn't want to appear to be a threat. He doesn't want to appear to be the tallest or the brightest flower. He just wants to remain in the garden, and he feels as though acting like a feeble old man keeps him around. People see him as less of a threat and less like a person that should be taken out because, you know, politics and
It's true, but he didn't fool Varys and in the book and Qyburn in the show. I guess they thought he was worth taking out.
63. The Hound wanted to go to Essos and fight as a sellsword when Arya asks him what he plans to do. And it doesn't make much sense for him to go and join the Brotherhood either in Season 6 versus his goal to go to Essos. I actually don't remember the Hound ever saying this, nor which season it's in, but I feel as though this was more of a throwaway line because he later changes his mind, I think, and tries to ransom off Arya to her family a few times. Maybe he was just trying to get the goal to go to Essos, but I don't remember this being an active goal of his.
Yeah, it must be a throwaway. I mean, it must be a throwaway. There's, because if you remember, like, so they split a Storm of Swords up into seasons 3 and 4. But the Red Wedding happens at the end of season 3. So now you've got an entire season to fill of Arya and the Hound just wandering around doing nothing, which
so boring.
Which is not, you know, not that much happens. I'm trying to think of like post Red Wedding Storm of Swords. Like Arya goes to a village and then they live there for a couple weeks, and then the villagers decide that they need to leave, and then they go to the Inn at the Crossroads. And that's the end of that. That's the end of the Arya story in A Storm of Swords. So you had too much time and not enough plot. So I guess they give him a random conversation or something.
64. Illyrio Mopatis is never seen again after the first few episodes in season 1, even when they're at his house in season 5. This is
huge drop plot.
He's just another victim, in my opinion, of placing the budget elsewhere. Characters that appear should have reappeared in later seasons, like Great John Umber and Ungai are also left out, likely due to budget restraints. I feel like Great John Umber was fairly, like, prominent in season 1. Like, he appears quite a few times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They make him into a much bigger role than he has in the book, you know? I mean, all of those lines exist, but when you... All the lines exist in the show, but when you delete everybody else, it makes Great John Umber look like he's this huge guy, you know, this huge role, And yeah, no, and then he just disappears, dies off screen.
Well, in the season one, he is the one that calls for Robb being the king of the North. He's the first one to unsheath his sword and pledge to Robb as king of the North. So you would think that he would appear a bit more than he did. And quite frankly, it's weird that Tycho, what's his last name? Nestoris?
Tycho Nestoris?
Nestoris, thank you. I'm sorry. It's weird that Tycho Nestoris has a bigger presence in the show than Great John Umber, who is one of the major lords in the North. The House Umber is later play somewhat of a more bigger role when we see them in season 6 going up against Jon and his forces. So, if anything, I would like to have seen him die in season 3 during the Red Wedding, if anything.
I mean, that short-haired servant of Cersei has a bigger role than Great John Umber. I mean, a lot of people have a greater role than Great John Umber. Raz.
Greater role or more screen time?
More screen time, you know. I mean, yeah, that Great John Umber is very important in season 1, and then, you know, he's never heard from again. Killed off screen. So
killed off screen. But yes, Illyrio Mopatis, I would consider that dropped. I would like to have seen him again.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that they couldn't get that actor for honestly one goddamn scene when Tyrion like shows up at his mansion, you know, or something, or just a throwaway line of like, you know, Illyrio like no longer speaks to me because of Dany's destruction of the slave trade. Like just one line, and it would have been fine.
He actually appears 3 times in season 1. The first time is obviously episode 1 when he introduces Dany to Khal Drogo. The second time, also in season 1 during the wedding to Dany and Khal Drogo, where he gives her the eggs. And the third time is in the not the dungeons where they keep the bones of the dragons.
Skulls, yeah.
Yeah, that was him meeting up with Varys, and they discussed the wolf and the lion going to war soon.
Yeah.
He's fairly important to Varys' plans, which it seemed like Varys had grand plans back in season 1 during those meetings.
Back when there was an Aegon cause.
Yeah. Back when we were sure that George might have released the 6th book before they got to that point, and nope. And last but not least, 65, Jon and Ghost's relationship is just all over the place. I don't feel like this is a dropped plot. I just feel as though this is kind of, I don't want to say lazy writing, but it is weird, like, because there are moments where Jon and Ghost are super close, and the moments where he just doesn't really care about Ghost that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it was budgeting or something. You know, they didn't want to have a direwolf around. But the fact that, you know, Ghost, who has this huge connection with Jon, especially after he dies and like saves his life so many times, and then all of a sudden like vanishes from the story, and then we get a few seconds of him at the battle, and then, you know, he pets him a few times, and that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, that he had no goodbye, but of course he had no goodbye because we knew he was going to be back. You know, but he should have had a goodbye.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the direwolves, as time goes on, really kind of play more of a background role than they should have. I think the only direwolf that really took precedence was Rob's direwolf, who went with him into battle constantly, though we never see it, but we're told that happens. And Robb uses Grey Wind quite a few times, actually. One time to threaten Jaime. Jon uses Ghost a couple of times too, but you would think, you know, the Starks would be a bit more closer to their wolves than that.
Right. I mean, obviously, you know, we don't get the book Jon either, who can actually, you know, skin change him and has a telepathic connection to him. You know, they only explore that with Bran. So, and Summer. I mean, I guess if there's a wolf that was done dirty, it's Summer. You know.
Doesn't Summer get killed? Right. What happened to Summer again in season 6? Doesn't Summer get killed?
She jumps out like when the White Walkers are attacking the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. He jumps out for a second, and then he's surrounded by undead, and then we assume that she's ripped apart.
Oh yeah, that's right. Wow, that wolf was done dirty. Holy
Yeah.
fuck. Jesus, but yes, that is all we have for right now, unless Supercuts decides to make another video. I do enjoy discussing these, and I hope I wasn't ripping on his choices too much. But I definitely check out his channel. Very entertaining guy. Preston, thank you so much for joining me on these.
Anytime, anytime.
Preston, when is Winds of Winter coming out? Because I know they put out a Winds of Winter website. What's going on with that?
I have a Winds of Winter website, but I mean Winds of Winter.
Preston, I was doing a thing. Come on. I was doing a thing.
Yeah. No, I have windsofwinter.com, but we'll keep mentioning it. I need to start editing it, doing something with it. It's just kind of sitting there. But
honestly, what you have here so far is actually pretty cool. You need to update the Mercy one.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess it's supposedly July we're gonna get an announcement, but I doubt it. I really doubt it.
Really, July? That seems so far away. But then again, time moves by so quickly. Didn't he say he was supposed to have it at like New Zealand Con or something like that?
Right, which is the end of July.
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
So his statement was like, "Oh, I'm totally gonna have it by the time I go to New Zealand Con, and if I don't, you have every right to like kidnap me and like make me, write."
He'll have it in his hands at New Zealand Con. He needs to like hire some good security because I feel like people would rush the stage and try to steal it from him.
Now, granted, even if he had it, it would still need to be edited and printed and things like that, and that would take 6 months or more. So we'd still have a lot of time. But I don't know. Will he have it in his hands by the end of July? I wouldn't bet on it.
With how much Game of Thrones leaked during its production, like story points and stuff like that, it would kind of annoy me if like George finished the book and then gave it to his editor, and one of his editors like told certain piece of information to someone they knew, and that person leaked it on like the Reddit forums and stuff, because I'm really kind of getting sick of the leaks, and I really don't want this book, any details of it whatsoever, to be leaked. Even though he did release some chapters here and there, that's fine, but I want to like kind of go in completely in the dark, and not know what's about to happen because some dipshit decides he wants 5 minutes of fame on Reddit and leaks it on there.
Yeah, I don't think things will be leaked. I mean, one thing is like there's many fewer people involved with publishing a book than producing a show. I mean, you're going to have one editor, maybe two, who's going to read that manuscript and make corrections. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's just, you've got some people that got to send it to the printer. And then at that point, maybe at the printer, like somebody is might leak it. But by then, like you're so close to the publishing date that it's not that big a deal. I mean, do you remember if spoilers for Harry Potter like it came out when it was getting published?
I feel as though the internet wasn't there yet in regards to spoilers when it came to stuff like that. If they were, it would have been for shows and movies, not books.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but I feel as though Game of Thrones is more popular right now than Harry Potter is. I think at its height, Thrones was way more popular than Harry Potter was at its own height, but I also think Potter has made more money since it can be marketed towards kids, whereas Thrones is usually aimed at a more of an adult audience. Because I feel like Harry Potter's popularity really hinges on whether or not new movies or books are coming out, whereas Thrones has managed to retain its popularity despite it not releasing anything new right now. Though I'm sure someone is going to want to debate that in the comment section, which by all means, please do.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you're going just books, Harry Potter probably sold more books and was more popular. If you're going all media, multimedia, then you're including the shows and the movies, then I would say the Game of Thrones is more popular,
More popular, but which made more money? I think Harry Potter made more money, but because of the success of Game of Thrones, even with the lackluster last 2 seasons, I feel as though this book would probably be one of the most pre-ordered books or one of the most bought books ever. Maybe not more than the Bible, but
I mean, I I'm just hoping that we're gonna crack that book and the plot is just gonna be completely and utterly different. Like it's just like what? Jon stays dead the entire time.
The whole book is him dead? Oh my God, no
God,
way.
right? Yeah. Like oh my God. Like that would be pretty incredible, right? That no, Jon really died. Like mind blown. Completely different story. You know, that's all he has to do. Keep
That
Jon
would
dead.
actually be so insane, like because the show really banked on Jon Snow being that bathroom sign that you said. But
Yeah.
him then who takes the lead role in the North? Like who's that guy? Who's the bathroom sign? I mean, the books don't really have a need for the bathroom sign, but who
Asha Greyjoy. Who it doesn't matter, you
really?
know. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, you figure something out. You figure something out, or
Watch
like,
it be Rickon, right?
well, no, or like it'd be Rickon and like Asha ends up being like his main advisor, or like Asha
Or
becomes
Davos.
Stanos. Yeah, Amish. Yeah, or like Asha becomes Stannis' advisor. Or Davos figures out something. Davos is now advising Rickon. Like something, you know, like there's a million, and I would like, look, if I were writing the book, I would keep Jon in the direwolf, and I would have like a direwolf chapter. Like I'd keep Jon dead the whole book, and I'd have the epilogue be Ghost, like north of the
Damn, bro, that's
wall.
that's a little dangerous. I don't know how people would react to that. That's a little dangerous.
Well, I mean, you know, George R. R. Martin likes to live dangerously in his writing. But that if I were writing the book, that would be the creative choice I would make. I would keep Jon dead, the whole book, and so you're reading the whole book, going, "Oh my God, where's Jon?" And then in the epilogue I would have be Ghost, like north of the wall, like doing something, you know. And you realize that Jon's spirit is still alive, like you know, which is roughly what he did in A Storm of Swords, right? Like you think Catelyn's dead, and then in the epilogue, you know, she's alive.
Yeah, but okay, so keeping Jon dead the entire Winds of Winter, and then we have Dream of Spring, which is the final book, or so he says.
Yeah.
And then let's say he's resurrected in Dream of Spring. He has a lot of stuff to do. He has a lot to do. A lot.
I don't even need him resurrected. You know, have him follow Bran. You know, that's fine. But you, so you know, I would have if I were structuring the books. I mean, I've thought a lot about how I would structure the books. But you know, if I were doing it, I would have the next book would be Dany making her way and landing in Westeros at the end of the book. You know, we resolve our northern plots and everything at that point too, and then A Dream of Spring would be mostly her battle with Aegon, and I would actually have like the other invasion kind of like as the last third or last quarter of the book. Like I would, because I don't think a zombie invasion where everybody dies is very interesting. So you could just keep, you know, that could be faster kind of pace. But
I've always found it super weird that the White Walkers in the books don't have as big of a presence as they do in the show, because they're huge motivation for the wildlings wanting to come down south, and they barely appear. They have some appearances here and there, of
yeah,
course, but as compared to the show, where the books and the show were at the same time, not as
yeah. Like
much.
if it weren't for the fact that this is a book, and you kind of know certain things about a story, like oh, you know, a man and a woman are introduced. I bet they're gonna get together. Like you know, if it weren't a story, we don't really have any evidence that the others want to go south of the wall and invade, right? Like there's nothing in the book that's actually introduced that idea. But because it's a story, we kind of know that okay, they're going to invade south at some point. But there hasn't been anything in the book that says they want to do that.
And I actually wanted to ask you about this. So in the show, Daenerys eventually becomes the Mad Queen, and how she comes out of nowhere with this plan to bring peace and order to the world.
Yeah, yeah. Break the wheel, all that.
And we never really got any inkling of these plans of hers before this one scene in season 8.
Oh, well, we have her sit down with Tyrion. She first brings up breaking the wheel
Yeah, but when she brings up breaking the wheel, it just sounds like she's going to correct the injustices that the wheel produces. She doesn't say she's going to bring order and justice
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
like, lands beyond Westeros. But do you think what truly makes her go insane will be what they do to her as a prisoner? Because when we leave her in the fifth book, they find her, and the Dothraki aren't really known for their excellent treatment of prisoners, if they do take any. So it is possible the things she experiences or goes through while prisoner of the Dothraki is what, like, truly breaks her mind. And not to mention, it would also parallel what happened to her father when the Mad King was in prison in Duskendale for like a year or something. So it would make sense on that level as well.
Huh.
Because
I
in the
mean,
show, when she's captured by the Dothraki, they don't touch her. They don't, like, rape her or brutalize her, nothing.
right, right.
But in the books are much different. And do you think the Dothraki will, like, do something to her?
Yeah, but she's still she's still a member of the Dosh Colleen. So, like it would go against, this is his out, right? It would go against their beliefs to do something to a Dosh Colleen. So, and in the books, like the Dosh Colleen apparently have real power, unlike in the show where they're immediately said to be nothing. So it's hard to say where they're going with it.
Well, Danny's mind break and her wanting justice in the world has to come from something. If anything, she'll probably be traveling with the Dothraki as their prisoner to bring her to Vast Dothrak. And along the way, she'll probably witness the Dothraki raping and pillaging, and maybe that's where her idea comes from about bringing justice and peace and prosperity into the world in the
Yeah, yeah,
books. Maybe that's what will happen, because it's kind of a leap.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the Mad Queen's theory has been around for a while, and then it somehow happened in the show. So maybe, I don't know. They'll have to come up with something. I don't know if it's going to be her being brutalized versus just her naturally coming to this. I mean, she did kill all those slavers in Astapor, and above the age of 12. So
And I also wonder, because the Dothraki charging into the White Walkers, that was such a huge death sentence to them. And I always wonder, like, did Dany ever harbor hatred against the Dothraki? Did she ever just see them as, like, tools of war and that was it? She had no compassion towards them? If anything, she'll probably, what she'll go through in Winds of Winter in Dothraki captivity will probably change her mind or make her hate the Dothraki, just seeing them and how
yeah,
they truly are.
there's a few things that happened in season 8 that just smelled like George R. R. Martin. I mean, I don't think D&D like implemented them well, but they just smelled like George R. R. Martin. Like Bran being king at the end, like kind of something that's been predicted before. But that's one thing. Tyrion's speech about like stories, like, which as stupid as it was, it like definitely felt like George R. R. Martin. Sam talking about true death being when everyone forgets you and all of that, and what the Night King wants, that felt like George R. R. Martin. A white dragon, like a dead dragon, felt like George R. R. Martin. Like would D&D really have the balls to be like, yeah, let's do an undead dragon? Like, you think that's their idea, So the Mad Queen is another one. Like, I guess, it's happening. It just doesn't seem like something that D&D would pull the trigger over, like they sat there and like heard the plot points and were like, okay, we gotta do this plot point, So I guess we'll see if they come or not. I mean, George R. R. Martin can of course change his mind and do whatever he wants. Keep Jon dead.
You really want Jon to stay dead?
Oh, it would just be a much better story.
Oh, Jesus.
It's not that I like Jon. It's just that it would be more interesting to have Jon dead. There's so many more interesting characters to focus on up there, and I think Jon takes the oxygen out of the room. Like, I'd rather see the story. I'd rather follow Davos, Melisandre, Asha, and Theon. Like they're in the north. Like, I'd rather follow them than follow Jon.
My idea, my dream for season 6 onwards
Your
was
dream
to have
for
kept
spring.
My dream for season 6 onwards, what I would have done was kept Jon dead for a good chunk of the season and have Sansa kind of take over. Have her be the
Yeah.
negotiator. Have her be, the kingmaker. Have her just maneuver around chess pieces on the board, like Littlefinger taught her, or how she learned from Cersei to manipulate and just maneuver around people, going to each northern house and just convincing them to rise against the Boltons. And maybe then, after a while, Jon gets resurrected, or maybe comes out of his coma after Melisandre tries to resurrect him.
Yeah.
And I don't. I wanted a good chunk of season 6 to be in the north, the northern storyline, to be Sansa centric, because she barely did anything throughout the entire series besides get brutalized and fucked with.
That would have been incredible. That would have been a much better story had it just been like Sansa arrives at the wall, and Davos is there and Brienne is there, and then they kind of start advising her and like, well, I've got nothing to do. Like, I guess let's take this let's take the north, and then it would explain it better. Like Jon becoming a warmonger and wanting to take Ramsay Bolton out is kind of, I mean, I guess they needed Rickon back to do that, but it made more sense if it was Sansa, because Jon was so focused on the White Walkers. So if you have Sansa do that, go to the wall, get wildlings, get forces, rally the North. Yeah, that would have been a much better plot.
And there had to have been a reason for her to go through all the bullshit she went through throughout all the other seasons. Being fucked with by Cersei, being moved around like a chess piece on the board by Littlefinger. The insanity she had to go through with Joffrey, and then later her aunt Lysa. And it's just, there had to have been a purpose and a reason for all of that to have happened, and it kind of doesn't really go anywhere. We just get one throwaway line in season 8 where she goes, I think it was season 8 or season 7, where she references things she's learned from Cersei, and it
Yeah,
just doesn't really.
yeah. Things she learned from Cersei off screen. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But person, I'm sorry, we went on for way too long about all
No
this.
worries, no worries.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you for joining us as well. And as always, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.